Is Mike Lusk, are you here?
I'm here. For some reason, my camera is in reverse, so you're getting a picture of my desk.
I saw that. I saw that desk picture.
I'm trying to figure out how to turn it around.
My desk is a mess. You don't want to see it.
Okay, with that, we have a quorum.
I just started live streaming, Lewis. So just let me know when you're ready to start the slides, and I'll go ahead and go.
We'll wait for, well, I guess you can,
We don't have a quorum yet, though, do we? Hello, Bob.
we do. We have you, we have Mike Lusk, Bob Loversich, Jada, and Ted. So we have 5. We're good.
I'm going to suggest that at 8:30 we just go ahead and start. Pretty much. Who are we waiting for?
Nobody. So why don't we have Nolan go ahead and do these slides, the opening slides for the applicants, and then we can get started. Does that work for you, Steve?
Yeah, but don't we want to go ahead and do the roll call and swear people in and approve the minutes?
No, we usually do this before we do that. This is just to set up the meeting for the
I
applicants.
remember. Okay, go ahead. Sure.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Downtown Commission meeting at 8:30 on 23/21. Attendees are muted upon entry. You will be unmuted as appropriate. The chair will call on participants to speak during the meeting. If you have questions, you may send them via the WebEx chat to the host, which is me, Nolan. Feel free to send any questions you have to the chat box at the bottom right of your screen. All comments received via WebEx chat will not be part of the official record. Just to let you know, the meeting will be recorded. And I started the live streaming to YouTube already, and the recording is starting now.
All right, Steve. Take it away.
Okay, very good. I'm just to start things off. Do you want to take the roll call here, Lewis, or do you already have a list of?
Let me go ahead and take the official roll.
But the city people and the commissioners.
Yes. So let's see. So why don't we go ahead and
If you know which commissioners are here, I don't think we need to do a roll call. You've got a list of them. Does that sound good, or do you want to do a roll call?
I'm supposed to do one. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Do you want to swear in staff?
I was going to swear in staff. If you want me to swear in staff, I'll do that now. Would everyone from the city please raise your right hand? And would you identify yourself quickly, please, for the
Louis Taba.
anyone else from the city? Do you swear and affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say I do.
I do.
Thank you very much. Okay. Now, let's do the roll call then, Louis.
Steve Whitman.
Here.
Mike Lusk. Mike
Here.
Lusk.
Yeah, I'm here.
Bob Loversich.
Here.
Jana Maniaci.
Here.
Ted Hardesty.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, we have a quorum. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting? Has everyone had a chance to look at those? Thank you, Bob. Is there a second?
Second.
As you might recall, we had only one case last week. It was the north, is that 5th Street, 2 houses there by Edwards Company. So that was a quick one. We talked about lighting and and then we reviewed the staff approvals. Any other questions, comments, additions, deletions? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval say aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved from the last meeting. Let's go right on to the, are we ready to go right on to the first case then, Louis?
Yeah, ready to go.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, so the first case is 2102-005, 195 East Broad Street. Let me pull up the location on the map here for you. As you recall, they came before us at the December 2020 meeting of the Downtown Commission. It's right next to the Columbus Club. This area right through here, 195 East Broad. So the applicant is proposing construction of a 13-story apartment building. As part of this proposal, 2 existing buildings will be demolished, although the facades of one of the buildings will be incorporated into new construction. I won't read all this. The details have remained the same. I went over the Sanborn map information last time, talking about when these buildings were constructed. One of them is the WCOL radio station building that will be demolished. They appeared conceptually at 2020, like I said. And I'll just go over some of the points that the commission brought up. Maniaci asked if the WCOL building could be incorporated into the new building. Whitman asked if the core could appear to be its own building. He appreciated the lobby being there. He felt the area above the stone facade was odd. Loversage asked that the historic facade not appear to be pasted on. It should be emphasized with some depth. He did not like floors 2 through 5 and did not understand the black brick with black mortar. The WCOL building should be documented if it does come down. Beatty expressed some concern about the building being all black. And Tony Slanik said he would like to see the ground floor on the South Young Street improved as well. So the applicant has made some changes, and instead of reading that, I'll just pull up the image here to show you what they are doing. So here's their submission. Let me go down to the pages that compare what they've done since last time. You're all seeing my screen, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So this was last time, this was the submission in December. You can see here they had this area of the building kind of bricked in. It wasn't storefront. This area of the facade here, Tony Slanik said he was concerned about, staff had concern about that as well, and they had this window pattern here. And here's the lobby entrance. So based off of feedback, they came back with this proposal. You can see they've opened up these windows to be storefront. However, they will be tinted, so you won't be able to see inside. I believe there's mechanical equipment back there, but at least there is a storefront system. They added this brick coursing throughout the building, and you can see here, this level here, they added some windows and put the screening a little bit higher. And I'll let the applicant go into more detail further on. We had still asked for some improvements to the design. We asked that they could incorporate some sort of public art through here. I think the city has always thought the idea of incorporating the old facade of the WCOL building here would be great. We also asked, we have this historic building height right here, and this is lower. We kind of asked that the applicant could kind of use this as a reference line to increase the height of the lobby, to kind of match that. And so what they came back with was this. This is their most recent submittal. They didn't increase the height of the windows, but they did put a brick coursing line here, so you can see the change from there to there. I'll let the commission decide, what you prefer. And then for public art, they ended up closing up these windows. And what they thought they would do was they're proposing putting in some sort of a artifacts from the buildings that are torn down, I believe it is. Maybe some plaques talking about what was there, maybe some pictures of the buildings, which is kind of an interesting idea, but whatever the commission prefers, this one or this one. So I'll leave it at that. And just to finish up the report, they've also changed the brick from a black brick to a gray brick with dark mortar gray. And the black has been changed to bronze on a lot of the building, and they added that stacked bond brick pattern. So our analysis is that the guidelines recognize that downtown is home to the region's most intense development, where larger scale buildings are appropriate. Minimizing the investment potential of a given site is encouraged, but so is preservation of existing building stock. The commission is encouraged to consider if demolition would allow for new development, which in their opinion is of greater significance to the character of the surrounding area. Finally, ground floor windows should consist of clear glass and should not block the views into interior spaces. In summary, the commission will have to determine whether the new proposal justifies the demolition of the existing structures. And the proposal generally meets the guidelines with building design. However, planning had some concerns which have been expressed to the applicant, and I've already indicated all of that. One thing we did ask the applicant to do based off of Bob Leverage's comments was to document the WCOL building if the building is demolished. And that's it for staff's presentation.
Okay. Is the applicant, who's here for the applicant, please? I see Jeff. You're muted, Jeff.
I'm also here, Steve Bryce
Who?
Hall, Cap Art Architects. Bryce Hall.
Okay. Anybody else? Would anybody that wishes to speak for the applicant, please raise your right hand? Do you swear and affirm the testimony you're about to give us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say I do.
I do.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, great. Louis, thank you for that introduction. Commission, thanks again for your time. I can attest to the fact that, yes, you can attend these meetings from outside of Columbus. I'm calling in from Denver, Colorado this morning, and glad to be joining remotely. Thank you. As Louis said, nothing material to the program or the statistics of the building have changed since the last meeting that I attended with you. So I'd be just wanting to move right on to the aesthetics of the building and spend some additional time there, unless there's any questions regarding the program. Louis, will we see the pages again? I don't see the screen any longer.
Yes, you should. I think let me share that again. One moment. There you go.
Okay, great. And could you take us right to page 13 of the slides there, Louis, if you wouldn't mind? Oh, perfect. You got it, sir. Thank you. So some of the pretty pictures, guys, we're looking at the building here at the northwest corner, which is at the intersection of Broad and Young Streets. Louis, next slide, if you wouldn't mind. And here we are looking at
Louis, can you possibly expand the elevations themselves a little bit? Is that possible? Or that was perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Louis.
Sure.
And here we are looking at the northeast corner. And one thing I wanted to point out briefly here is, as Louis mentioned, you can see that when we replace that existing facade, it will in fact turn the corner of the building and clad the eastern face of the lower two stories, as you see here. That was something that wasn't evident in the original renderings that we presented to the commission back in December. So I wanted to point that out on this slide. But it's kind of an overall, so there's not a lot of detail. So I'd be wanting to move on to the next one now, Louis, if you wouldn't mind. Yeah, well, there we go. Great. And Louis did such a nice job of explaining this, but I'll take a moment to spend a little more time here. Some of the feedback that we had from the initial meeting had to do with the openings between the existing facade in the first two levels and the superstructure of the building above. And so as we left that meeting, we did look at a number of different ways to organize these openings. And what we realized is that, we've got a very formal organization, a vertical organization of openings in that existing facade. And then we've got another rather formal organization of openings in a horizontal banding in the new superstructure above. And as we looked at introducing other more formally organized groupings of openings in that in-between space, in that brick between the existing facade and the building above, it was impossible really to do that because of the organization of the other windows. It was it didn't really work, quite honestly. And so we realized that the best way to bridge the gap between these two rather formal organizations of openings, the vertical and the horizontal, was with the openings as we had, somewhat suggested them previously. But in order to make them a little more sensible, we organized them by introducing, as Louis mentioned, both brick banding, so you can see the darker brick, which not only is a darker brick with a darker mortar, but it's also a stacked bond where the rest of the building is a running bond. So there'll be a change in the way the brick is actually installed and in color. And then there's some minor amounts of relief in the brick as well. So for example, Louis pointed out the most significant one, which is at the edge of the existing facade where the cursor is now. We've introduced relief at that point to increase the depth of that facade, but there's other locations you can see at the corner of the building. Just up from there, Louis, where your cursor is now, there's a piece of relief. So there is relief in that brick. So that, in addition to the banding, we thought did a good job of organizing those openings in the brick above. So that was one, guys. The other thing, of course, to point out here, as Louis has already mentioned, is that we have taken some feedback and organized or aligned the top of that corner entry element with the top of the existing facade. Louis mentioned, yes, we did not bring the glazed opening all the way up to that level, which we couldn't do for one you know, the structure of the building, the parking garage slab is at the location basically where the tops of the windows are now. But in addition to that, we wanted to have a, you know, a head to that form. You wouldn't want to bring the glazing all the way up. You'd want to have a, you know, a cornice to it as you do with the existing facade, which kind of completes that form at the corner. But you can see that we've really emphasized that corner element to make it even more important and to organize again some of those windows with the top of the existing facade. Louis, I'd like to go to the next slide if you wouldn't mind.
I'm gonna have to, there we go.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
So this was your original. Let me go,
Oh.
this will be your next slide. There you go.
Could we go to the, yeah, that would be great, Louis. And then could you just pan it a bit so we can see that entire length of the street? Thank you. So here again, the comment was along Young Street in the previous iteration, it was not a very pedestrian friendly experience. So we've done a couple of things. One, the fins that you see there screening the parking garage did come much closer to the street level. So we've raised those up to create a better scale for the pedestrian experience. And then more importantly, I think, is we've added this artifact showcase as Louis described. And the thought there is we create some relief in the building, put as a background, either, you know, existing reclaimed facade materials or materials to match the facade that was in place. That's that light material that you see. And what we're really doing is creating a showcase for what we think would be artifacts from the WCOL building. So for example, there is the tile mosaic at the entry to the building now at the street level. That could be reclaimed, put in this space. Oh, great. Yeah, do you have an image of that?
I do. I was gonna pull that up real quick.
There's also a keystone.
Let me get that.
Maybe we'll see. Yo, there's the keystone. There, that was perfect. So there's the tile inlay. That's wonderful. Louis, yeah, perfect. There is the keystone, the WCOL keystone there at the top of the building. And then there's the tile inlay. So there's a number of, as I said, artifacts of this important building, this WCOL building that we thought could be salvaged during the demolition of the building, and then could be highlighted in this artifact display case along the Young Street there. So, you know, that creates some interest, of course. That's kind of addressing the public art comment. But we thought it was also a nice way to respond to the idea of, hey, we want to be able to remember this WCOL building. How do we incorporate some of these really unique characteristics into the new building? So we thought this would accomplish both and really enhance that pedestrian experience there along Young Street. Okay, Louis, if you wouldn't mind going to the next, please. And zoom out just a bit if you wouldn't mind. Perfect, thank you. So here again, we are addressing the comment of that existing facade that was appreciated that we're reusing it, appeared to be a bit pasted on. So as I mentioned previously, we've created that recess at the very western edge to create some depth there. It's turning the corner at the eastern edge. And then as Louis pointed out, we had previously, for the last several bays of this facade, infilled with the same brick that we're using on the new facade. We've changed that. We're now infilling it with the same storefront glazing that we're using in front of the 2,500 square feet of retail space. However, as Louis mentioned, behind this portion of the facade, we've got vertical circulation actually. So we've got our elevator core and we've got our stair core. So we're not able to provide just transparent glass. You know, you can't do that. We've got some solid cores behind it. So instead what we're doing is infilling it with glazing, and the glazing will be back painted. It'll be, you know, 2 layers of glass insulated glazing like you would see anywhere else in the building. So the glazing itself will have some depth, but it'll be back painted so it's opaque. So you wouldn't be seeing, you know, the cores of the building behind. So it'll be glass, it'll be reflective, but it won't be transparent. It'll be opaque. It'll be painted on the backside. So you can see that there. And then of course, as you guys knew from the previous meeting, in addition to infilling all those bottom bays with storefront glazing, as I just mentioned, we are retaining, of course, the rail that is at the second floor, and the openings, the infill, the openings above will, you know, either be the reclaimed opening frames that are there today, or else frames that are recreated to match the existing, and those provide openings into the garage. And then, of course, the last 2, similar to the storefront, have to be back painted because they are in front of the cores. Okay, Louis, I'm ready for the next one, if you wouldn't mind. And I just wanted to pause here real quickly, and if you could just pan it up just a bit so we can see those bricks samples kind of a bit, just a bit.
Oh, I see.
There you go, right there. That's perfect. Thank you, Lewis. So last comment that we addressed, guys, was the dark and heavy base. And coming out of that meeting, I, along with Jeff and his team and my team, looked at several different variations in color here at the base. And we really did feel that the best composition was created by retaining the dark base, but we have changed it a bit. So previously we were suggesting a dark brick with a dark mortar. What we are proposing now is a warm, for the most part, warm gray brick, that would be the body, with a light colored mortar. And then, as I mentioned previously, where you've got those darker bands that we're using to articulate the building and organize some of the openings, there we'd be going with a darker brick, and again, in a stacked bond pattern, so a different pattern. And I wanted to point out, Lewis, there's an image at the left-hand side. It's not of our building, it's of another building. If you could maybe zoom on it just a bit. Yeah, that's the one right there where your hand is now. Could you zoom in there just briefly? That's perfect right there. Thank you. I wanted to show you guys the inspiration for this brick tone that we're proposing at the base. This is the building that Jeff Edwards referenced previously in Dallas. And it's using the same tone of warm gray brick and light mortar that we're proposing for our building. And what I wanted you guys to see in this image is when it's in the sunlight and it's actually real, it's a very warm feeling. You know, we say gray, and it's not a cool feeling building. There's a lot of warmth and depth to the feel of this type of brick and mortar when it's applied. And you can see here, we're using some very similar elements. That brass surround at the entry, we're proposing a brass surround at our entry. And then there's that pop of color with the, maroon colored awnings, which again, we're proposing. So I just wanted to draw your attention to this image because I thought it did a good job of showing what we're proposing for the color of this brick at the base, how that would actually feel when it's constructed and you're experiencing it from the street, in the warmth of the sunlight. And then maybe you zoom out there. I'll remind myself if there's anything else I wanted to point out to the commission here.
Bryce,
Again,
when you say light mortar, how light are you talking about? I mean, you're not talking about white, for example.
Not white, Steve. No, it would be a lighter gray,
Yeah.
but it would contrast in tone with the brick itself. So it would be lighter in tone than the brick. It would not be white by any stretch. So we want it to be able to see it. You don't want it to match exactly the brick. But we don't want it to be such a striking contrast that it really stands out. It's not like black brick on white. So I believe, Lewis, we're preparing or have prepared for you a sample board that would indicate specifically the color of the mortar that we're proposing to use. I'm not sure if we have that available.
And where is this lighter brick? Is it just on the corner piece there on the south or the northwest corner?
Lewis, would you mind zooming out to the whole page for a moment, please? Good question, Steve. Thank you. I'll just bring up the image here. If we could see just the whole page for a second there, guys.
But you said the whole page?
Yeah, could you show? I would like to see the building, our building now, Lewis, if you wouldn't mind. You could just zoom out, please.
Maybe the previous. There we go. Thanks.
That's a good one. So, Steve, in answer to your question, the entire field of the base of the building, with the exception of the dark banding that you see, for example, the dark banding at the corner, all the remainder of the brick will be that warm gray with the light gray mortar. The only place there's an exception to that is at that banding that I mentioned, that dark banding, where we're using the darker gray brick with a darker mortar to create some contrast in the patterning of the brick.
And Bryce, the stack bond is where, and the running bond is where?
Let's see here. The dark banding, Bob, is the stacked bond. So every place you see the dark banding, that would be the stacked.
Okay.
The remainder would be the running.
Okay.
So we've got just a small portion of the stacked. The rest is the running.
Okay.
So guys, see, I think I've really addressed all the significant changes we've made to the building, particularly in response to the feedback we got from our initial meeting. And so I think I'm done with my presentation, and now I'm ready to answer some questions.
I have a couple of comments. first of all, I appreciate all the changes you made. I think they're really thoughtful and sensitive and improve the building. And I just wanted to mention that I think the Young Street facade is more important than normally we would see in a urban setting, because the Columbus Club that's adjacent is set back and it doesn't have that density. So it really is almost a primary facade, I think. And I think that because you have the parking garage there might be an opportunity to even build off on what you're doing and maybe even add some type of subtle but creative public art that might be adhered to it, that isn't too bold, but might be monochromatic, but gives, almost gives that facade some very unique visual interest. And I really like what you're doing with the artifact wall. But I'm also wondering another option maybe to consider. I know you had another option that had openings on this level, and maybe the artifact facade, the artifact panel could be incorporated into the lobby. It's just a thought, but I like what you have, the way you have it. But I just think that Young Street facade is very important because of how, what is around it, and should just be expressed as much as possible.
Certainly agree with the importance of that facade, both in relation to the building adjacent to it and the visibility that's related to that. So thank you for the comment.
Are there other
I have
questions or comments, Bob?
I have a couple of comments. First of all, I think the improvements you've made are very, very responsive to our comments, and I really appreciate that. And I think the change in the tone of the building and the articulation of the caisson facade, all of those things, I think, and the corner, all the changes you've made are, I think, tremendous improvements. I'm still not a huge fan of the windows above the facade, but I like it a lot better. So we'll go with that. So I have only really one comment, and that is, I love the way the facade turns the corner on the east side, and we certainly didn't see that last time. I didn't think it was there, and I think that's huge. Now, Louis, can you enlarge the junction on the west side at the end of the white stone? So there's a little bit of a depth change there, right, Bryce?
Yes, there is. We've recessed the brick to the extent that we can to create, the change in relief to, both to kind of break the existing facade for the new corner element and to allow some additional depth there.
So is there any way that the limestone could return into that notch, just even a foot or a little bit, so it doesn't look quite so pasted on? I can't really see what that detail is, but
looks like it does. It looks like it does turn.
It does. It's a little bit difficult to see. It's about, oh geez, I'm trying to remember how much the depth we have there. I think the amount of relief we've got there isn't about the magnitude of a foot, and the limestone will return in that particular spot, Bob.
Okay.
So we've done our best to really bring it back to the extent that we're able to.
I can see it better here.
Yeah, some of those images that, we can't quite show the detail, but that's a good, thank you, Louis, for zooming in.
I'm wondering if that reveal that you've created could be lighter, maybe then it wouldn't cast as much of a shadow and you would see the depth more. I'm not sure, but it might give more of the illusion that piece turns back.
Well, if it turns back, I think it turns back into a dark hole. I think that's probably good. If you made it light, it would look like it was turning again.
What's
maybe that's
Bryce?
true.
Yeah.
Bryce, what is the material in the recess?
The recess will also be brick, so we'll use it.
So it'd be bricks. Okay, the same.
Yeah.
Brick. Okay.
Yeah, and of course, and I appreciate the comments you guys are making, because it is difficult to tell in this rendering that stone returns, and it does appear dark. But keep in mind, it is the shadow that is showing up at this particular time of day that we selected.
Yeah.
As the sun moves around, I think it'll be a little more obvious that the stone is returning, and it'll probably accomplish a little better than what we've demonstrated in this rendering. I apologize for that.
Okay. I think the spandrel glass is terrific. you know, I mean, that facade is really going to sing. It's going to look good. So anyway, I just wanted to say I appreciate the changes that were made. A lot of them were in responses to comments that I made, so I guess I should like them.
Thank you.
Can Louis, can you move the image there to what is the right, I guess, so that we can see what is more to the west around the corner? There we go. Can you focus in on that?
Yeah, let me get it better here.
Yeah, right there, that corner. Just a couple of questions. Right where there's a little white mark down the window that is just on the Young Street side, just to the right of the
Yes, I see
big
it.
glass panel there, right there. Yeah. I'm wondering if it looks to me, it looks like that's where the manager's office is.
That's correct.
When I stand back and look at that, it almost looks like that it could be more, it could be kind of more interesting if it were a little taller. I see what you're trying to do. You're tying it into the frame on the window there, I guess. But I'm wondering if it could be, you know, almost a little higher in there. That might make that, again, I'm trying to enliven the Young Street side
Sure.
perhaps a little bit. It's an office. There's actually going to be something inside it instead of just spandrel glass. But that was something that struck me. And then it's kind of, to me, I like the idea that you've got this box on the corner, and I think that you've kind of articulated that. I think that's good. You've got the vertical piece that is a recess that goes up on the Broad Street side, and I'm wondering if somehow or another, I see how you're tying that into the window there. I'm wondering if that should be on the other side. In other words, it's like you've got a facade, but you've got the facade is almost on the Young Street side, as opposed to being on the Broad Street side. So,
Steve, just to make sure I understand your comment correctly, Louis, you had your cursor over were you suggesting that particular band occur on the Young Street side as well, Steve?
Maybe it makes the block that's on the Broad Street side be the facade that is on the major thoroughfare.
Yeah, that would be something for us to investigate. I agree. Regarding the window heads, you were spot on. We've aligned the heads of those windows now with both. There's a mullion as you identified in the storefront at the main entry, and also there's the doors just to the south. So we have tried to organize those things.
Yeah, I see it.
Nonetheless, we could look at it. The thing I'd have to really investigate is where the height of the slab is above that, because we don't have that 2-story volume throughout that space, Steve. So we do have to have a ceiling in there. We could certainly take a look at it, but I can't commit to it today without a little further investigation.
You see what I mean? Where it looks
I do.
You've got large glass panels go all the way along Broad Street.
Yep, I know just what you
come
mean.
all the way to the corner. They turn the corner, and then it goes clunk. It looks like it's about a 5-foot tall window. So I know it's not, but it's just a thought.
Sure.
And I mean, by the way, I like what you're doing. I think it's an elegant building, and I think it'll come off. So I think right now we're talking about nuances and tweaking and that kind of thing.
Keep in mind on Young Street that there's a very tall evergreen hedge along the Columbus Club side that was planted to mitigate the view of kind of deteriorating buildings. But this facade won't be quite as evident as it seems in this rendering.
Yeah, we've kind of mowed that hedge down so you can see the building.
Yeah. Don't tell the club.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, no, I don't see Young Street. I think you want to kind of treat it nicely. It's not quite an alley, but it's not really a thoroughfare to my mind anyway. Okay. No. Are there any other questions from anybody on the commission?
I think the question that I have is the artifact wall. I totally get what you're doing. I wonder if those artifacts are really going to be, I don't know, significant enough, is that the right word, to be attention, or whether Jana's suggestion of putting them in the lobby might be more scale appropriate. I'm struggling with that a little bit. I get the idea, and I appreciate the
I
thought.
I agree with that too, by the way.
Steve,
Okay,
can I add something?
sure, we have I'm sorry, who wants to talk?
Steve, it's Jeff Edwards.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Could I add something? Yeah,
Sure.
we haven't spent a lot of time talking about this, Bryce and I, but to me, I mean, there may be a few artifacts that we would say that should go in there, but I think more it would be kind of written history potentially, kind of plaques and or photographs, let's say from the 70s of DJs and things like that, but something that tells more of a story than just the architectural pieces, because there aren't that many that are significant, right? So to me, I think the story is more about, the fact that it's been around for, number of decades, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and kind of more of the storyline than it is, say, the artifacts, right?
Yeah. Could I make a suggestion? If we get to the point which I'm going to suggest we move to this point in a minute or two, where we're going to vote on this thing, I wouldn't want to hold it up over the panel. And if everybody thought it would work, I would suggest that they come back on something on the side of the building, and maybe the reuse of some of the architectural items that can be cleaned out of the building there. Does that make sense to anybody?
Yes.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
I have one thought, and it's just a little bit, off the wall, but I'm going to throw it out. If you feel that there aren't that many significant artifacts, sometimes I've noticed at COSI, they have interactive displays where you could actually have the real artifact and it becomes part of something that is interactive, whether it's an old radio station or something like that. So I don't know if that's another way to deal with it too, to bring it to a museum and have that be interactive for the community. But I do think that the artifact wall is a wonderful idea, the way you have it, especially if you have the written history. And I think just maybe developing the design some more and making, maybe trying to give some more to that wall there and incorporate that with the artifact wall, or again, thinking about how could that be incorporated into the lobby, and would that really make a unique lobby for you? So I think maybe exploring all those different avenues.
Okay.
Will there be signage on the building?
Yes,
Or
it will. And I think the
Applicant?
signage, excuse me. Was someone else trying to speak?
Go
there?
ahead, Bryce. No, I was going to say, I was just calling on the applicant to address the question.
Thank you. Yeah. So the signage would be in that as I described it, that head of the at the corner element there above the glazing, I think is the most appropriate location for signage for the building there, right above the entry. So that's where we would propose it to go there, Bob.
I would,
I think it should be more subtle than that.
This is Jeff. I don't think we've really thought through signage yet, so obviously we'll have to come back to you for that.
Is the applicant willing to come back to talk about both signage and lighting then? Because is lighting addressed here? I don't think it's really addressed, is it? Okay.
We certainly
So
expect you to come back for both of those elements.
Yeah.
Great. What's the pleasure? Is somebody clanking something here in the background? There we go. That's better.
Steve, can I ask you a question? We were wondering as well, would you like them to come back on details of the windows and storefronts that they'll be incorporating on the historic building?
Yes, I think they should.
Okay.
And
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
okay, so that would be lighting. It would be the details on the old building section, the lighting and signage.
Could they also?
Have we seen those samples in too, by the way? Can you, Louis, Bryce mentioned that we have samples that he's gotten us. Have we seen
I
them?
don't have them. I never received them. This is all I have.
Bryce, are we
Okay,
supposed to have something we don't have?
I know that we are creating a materials board, so I'll have to check in on that, Louis. I apologize. I wasn't sure if you'd received it or not.
Okay.
I know there was some.
Steve, can I add something also again on that point?
Yes,
This is
please.
Jeff Edwards. I mean, it's a little bit of a misnomer to call it a gray brick. I didn't want to interrupt Bryce, in a gray mortar, because there's a lot of brown in it, which I think really helps with the warmth. And there's a lot of brown even in the mortar. So I think it's important to see the samples, because I think it improves the building. It's a lot warmer than, what computer generated, drawings make it look like, I think.
And how about do we have samples on the panels above, on the building up above, and the window systems?
It sounds like not yet, Steve, but we'll.
I don't want to get. Here's what I want to. I want to see if what we can do today. You were coming in for a certificate of approval and demolition. Is that correct today?
Correct.
Okay. I don't want to get too far out on the branch here with too many things left down the line. But on the other hand, if we're ready to approve this, I mean, I'm liking what I'm seeing, and I'm liking what I'm hearing, and I think I'm liking the changes. So I'm ready to move this along. I mean, I guess, is everybody comfortable if they also come back with panels for or samples for brick and the metal panels and the window systems as well? Is that okay?
We can approve this subject to, final review of all that stuff, so that they can move forward, right? I mean,
right.
I think the things we're asking for, I'm confident that we're going to like them. So
I am too.
Can they
I'm sorry,
Oh,
go ahead.
I was going to say, can they also include, when they come back, just more detail on the artifact wall, what they've decided to do? Because
No, that was one of the items.
Oh, okay, great.
Is the applicant okay with that? With those ideas coming back on these things?
Jeff,
Bryce?
okay, I heard Jeff say yes, so that means I can say yes. Thank you.
I mean, I think we're moving forward. We're trying to move forward really on the demo permit and kind of, a larger approval.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Are there any other questions or comments from anybody on the commission?
yeah, relative to the
audience?
demo question, what's your schedule, Jeff? What's this is just to put on the record that we don't approve demolition unless we're going to immediately follow it with the new building. I really don't have a doubt of that, but I'd like to hear your what your schedule looks like.
I think originally we'd hoped to get started on demo in actually February. My guess is obviously that's not going to happen. So it's probably March, let's say, even maybe into early April. And then I think when we start on the building, it's really most dependent on when Bryce's group can get construction drawings all the way done to the point of being able to pull permit. But unless in fact we're going for just the garage to start, Bryce, you may be able to shed light on the schedule in terms of drawings and permit.
I can, and just to opine on that, right now I'll be submitting the building for permits in March. So Bob, to address your comment, the intention is to kind of align perfectly, if we can do it, the completion of demo with the start of construction, because it's also in the job's best interest not to have to remobilize, once we've done one piece, hopefully we can roll right into the other. So our intention is to get that as closely aligned as possible, but we will be submitting for permits here in March. So we will not be left with a unused site there after we've done the demo. We should hopefully be starting construction immediately following.
Okay. Are there any comments or questions from anybody in the audience? Anything else from the commissioners?
If I could real quick, I mean, March, we're expecting them to come back at the end of March, right? So they won't be able to pull any permits until they come back for their.
No,
they can. We can set this up so that they can proceed.
Yeah, that's what we'd like to do. Is I think that they can go ahead and start, and surely they can start with the demolition and some of the structural parts. What we want, but when would you plan on coming back? Do you know when you can have Bryce or Jeff? Again, let's reiterate what we're kind of talking about here. We want to see a brick sample. We want to see the samples for the panels. We want to see the samples for the window systems. We want to see the ideas for the panel on the side of the building. And very frankly, if you build the panel on the side of the building, and it's there, if you came back, the structural things, the brick, the window systems, the panels, I think we need to see those sooner rather than later. The artwork, if you're working on that and that comes back a little after that, that's fine. Signage, when you want to do signage and lighting, you got to bring that into us. So I'd say that the things that we need sooner rather than later are brick samples, window systems, and what was the other structural item? And the metal panels. So brick, metal panels, and window systems. What's your timing on those items?
I know we're already in the process of grabbing all those materials to make a presentation to the commission, and frankly, I
So
thought
we
you
would
had already
expect
had
to
it.
see those next
So-
month. Does that
So
work
yes,
for
we
you
could
guys?
have that to you in March for sure. At the very least,
Okay.
we'd have that for the
And
March meeting.
is it safe to say that we're not as concerned about filling out the art panel on Young Street and the signage and lighting by March? Is that okay with everybody?
No, that can come whenever they're ready.
Yeah, that's
I
what I
agree.
think too.
Yeah.
Okay, would someone make a motion, please?
I move approval of the applicant's design as revised and demolition of the existing buildings on the site, subject to final approval of exterior detailing of the brick, the storefront. What was the third thing? And the
Metal panels on the building.
and the metal panels.
Yeah.
With the artwork, lighting, and signage to come at a later date.
Okay. And we're saying that Lewis will then, based on that, will be ready to issue the demolition or the COA for the demolition permit and for construction. Is that correct?
Correct. Correct.
And then you're going to come back on these design items. Does the applicant understand this, and does it work for the applicant?
Yes.
Okay. Good. Okay. There is a motion to that effect. Is there a second, please?
Second?
This is a little bit involved. Lewis, you've got it down, right? So you'll be set on this for the motion?
Yep, approval of the proposal as submitted for the demolition permit and construction, final approval of exterior detailing and brick, return with the details on the storefront, brick samples and window system, metal panels, and then further down the line, they can come back with the artifact wall, lighting, and graphics.
Good. Okay, good. Are there any other questions or comments? There's a motion on the floor. Anything from the commission? Anything from the audience? All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carries, Lewis. Okay,
Got it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next case, please.
Thank you, Commission.
Thank you.
Okay, the next, load up here. Okay, so the next proposal is 2102003 at 555 West Gooddale Avenue. Let me pull that up here for you. This is at the White Castle. I think it's called the White Castle redevelopment. And what they are proposing is a linear park at the Reach development. It will include a boulder scramble, an overlook deck, concrete walks, a dog park, seating areas, manicured lawns, and parking. The layout and design will connect the previously approved phases of the development with the Olentangy River. The guidelines encourage public spaces in the downtown area. The public realm should be enhanced with improvements that promote good design, long-lasting building construction and materials, and attention to detail. The proposal generally meets the guidelines with regards to design principles and plazas and public spaces. And I did a site visit, so here is the amphitheater that was previously approved. This site kind of ties in with that. This is where the linear part will go between the office building on the left and these residential buildings on the right here in the middle with parallel parking on each side. Here you can see it. This is kind of where the overlook will be. This is looking back at the development. Linear park will be right through here. And then here's kind of what the overlook will see. It's a nice view of the river. And this is looking north, so the linear park will be passing left to right through here, and you can see how it kind of will serve all of these residential developments. And with that, staff is done with their presentation.
Thank you. Who's here for the applicant? Brad Parrish? I see Brad. Anyone else?
I'm here, Arch Hall, and Christian Hasenfranz is also from Pod. He's here as well
Okay, great.
to help present this.
Would all of you who wish to speak for the applicant please raise your right hands? Do you swear and affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say I do.
I do.
And you, Christian, thank you. Okay. Go ahead, Louis.
Great.
Are you done, Louis?
Oh, I'm done, yes.
Brad, we'll hand it over to the applicant then.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Commission. Thank you, Stephen. We're back again. We did show this as a preliminary concept. We do have the final details here. This is the next phase of the White Castle redevelopment here. As Louis said, it's the linear park and sort of lookout area that will serve as sort of dog park amenity space for it. So that's the highlighted area here. So I'm going to turn it over to Christian so that he can talk about the details, as well as he had some, the ownership has requested some marketing renders that I think tells the story a little bit more. So if he could share his screen to help, talk about this design, I think it'll help convey the idea a little bit better. So, Christian.
Yeah. Are you guys comfortable with seeing some renderings of the?
Sure.
Okay. Sure. It says it's connecting, I believe. And while it's connecting, the previously approved concept hasn't dramatically changed from what you guys saw. Really, these were just refinements as we developed, got final grading from the civil. And really, that's kind of what there was some extra as they completed construction of some of those buildings. So the grading was refined along the riverfront, which I'll show, and allowed us to develop what was shown previously as unprogrammed space that we were able to program as a dog park for the residents on site.
While we're waiting for the illustrations, everyone's had a chance to look at the drawings that were submitted. Were there any comments or any questions so we can keep it moving here?
I will
quick
make
question.
one
quick comment. Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
You're calling this a park. Is this going to be a city park, or you're just using that term as open space in your development?
As open space in the development, it's still part of the private development.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
I'll make a comment that I actually liked about this, and this is a space that's kind of separated from buildings enough so that you were able to put some trees that over time can be big. And you've got a number of oak trees in there, red oaks and white oaks. I think that's great. I mean, sometimes we end up with these kind of smaller scale trees in the urban landscape, and if somehow or another you can work in something, obviously, we're looking 10, 15, even 20 years down the line. And so, but these can be, I think those can be interesting, major kind of landscape elements there. I like that.
Thank you. Yeah, the intent was that as you kind of move from the home office and get closer to the river, it starts to engage with kind of the existing riverbank a little bit more.
Right. Right.
I have a question. So the park is in 3 segments, and I'm wondering, in terms of the landscape design, is the aesthetic that the plantings will look, or the design will look continuous, or that each one will be a little bit of a different, will be a different experience in terms of color and the plantings themselves and height variation? Just curious what you have in mind for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as I was kind of saying, I think it's a bit more of a gradient than kind of defined spaces, so that it's, it's a little bit more formalized in front of the White Castle home office, and as you get closer to the river, it becomes a little bit more diverse. And we've also included what's kind of a nice kind of nod to some of the White Castle family history, some of the plantings that are specific to some of the states that they have different branches within, as they don't have retail spaces in every single state, so it doesn't work for everyone. But there's kind of built sort of an arboretum of trees that are reflective of where White Castles are located within the U.S.
Great, and your overlook, I wanted to ask you, what materials will that be? And is that going to be something that really stands out as a structure, or is that going to be more integrated into the landscape? Or is the intention more to just be more like, okay, this is an element that stands out and is unique?
Yeah, the overlook itself is the kind of area is sort of a raised area. I apologize. I think, are you guys able to see the rendering that's on the screen?
Yes, I think we're seeing it now.
Okay.
I think it's my screen, actually.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't, for whatever reason, I had control to do that. I don't know. So I have the dog park area shown right now. Do you want me to go to the overlook?
Sure. And the dog park area that he had up previously was kind of showing the topography that we have. It's quite a bit of grade change around there. And the overlook itself is really just a connection of the main walk that cuts through the linear park, and it connects the amphitheater that's currently built that Lewis was showing previously. And at the end of that, we have a bit of a deck that kind of protrudes out a little bit more, so you get a little bit more of a connection to the river. And that material is a composite decking that extends off of a buff wash finish concrete.
Okay, thank you. And that's shown right there where you have the cursor.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think these illustrations actually are helpful here. Are there anything else you want to show us? I mean, I personally think it looks nice.
Yeah, no, I think this was, really just kind of the finer details. The main concept has kind of stayed the same for a number of years actually now.
Right. Sure. Okay. Any other questions or comments for the applicant? What's the pleasure of the group?
I would move to approve as submitted.
Okay. Is there a second then, please?
Second.
Okay, there's a second. Any other questions, comments, anything from the audience? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Thank you very much. Appreciate your bringing this in.
Looks great.
Okay. Next case then, please, Lewis.
Okay. Nolan,
Bob Loveridge left the meeting. I don't know if he voted yay or nay, but at any rate, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Is he returning or is he
I
gone?
don't know. I don't know. I don't know. We'll catch up with him later, but let's keep moving.
Indicate that. All right. I apologize. Nolan informed me that it sounded like my microphone was really loud and I sounded like I was yelling. That was not my intent. So I turned it lower. Let me know if that's better.
Nolan, thank you very much. Keep him in line, please.
All right. So the next one is DC 2102-001. It's at 171 North 4th Street. Let me pull it up here on the map. So it's right here. It's at the location, I think, of the old Elevator Brewery, right here between Spring and East Lafayette, and just north of Pins Mechanical. And the site encompasses this billboard and this parking lot and this most northern building. I believe it's all owned by the same property owner. So the applicant is proposing, and I did a site visit. Let me pull up the images here. So this is the building. It's going to be Jackie O's on 4th, and here's the building, and here's the parking lot with the billboard to the north. Here's the north elevation of the building. This is where they are proposing to include all of these, this patio space through here. This is from the rear. You can see the parking lot and kind of what's the, I don't know what this is, this large water tower or something. Here's the parking lot. And here's kind of another view of it. And here you can see this building and its neighbors next to it. This is the UHS building, University Housing Services, I believe. And they wrote in a letter, which I'll read to you as well. And so you can just kind of see what they're planning on doing. So this is kind of gives its orientation. So here's the proposal. Here are the apartments that were recently constructed right here. They're pretty close. And here's the restaurant that was recently renovated that was approved by the commission as well. So the proposal will not build over the entire parking lot on the site, but just a portion of the parking lot. And then this northern part of the parking lot will remain, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So they will construct a multi-level patio on an existing surface lot. The scope includes new landscaping areas, plantings, and retaining planter walls, a double height shipping container bar, a covered area with a mezzanine above, and various seating areas. The patio will consist of a series of tiered decks which step down with grade to the west of Lizelle Alley. Stormwater runoff from the existing building will be redirected and stored for irrigation throughout the patio. The guidelines state that new construction should be influenced by the pattern of nearby contributing buildings. Outdoor spaces should be designed in a way that contribute to the community while minimizing the potentially negative off-site impacts of light and noise. In summary, the proposal generally meets the guidelines with regards to design and materials. However, planning would like the applicant to address any potentially negative impacts related to noise and light that could affect surrounding properties. Staff received a letter from Scott Surovac on 2/22 regarding this proposal. He represents University Housing Solutions, who owns the property at 161 North 4th Street. This letter has been included in the packet, and I can read that later during, or I can read it now whenever you prefer. I can read it as well.
Has everybody read the letter? Do we?
Yes.
I don't know if we need to read it. I know you sent it out, and I'm going to think that all the commissioners have seen the letter, which we will take into account. Okay.
Okay. That's it.
Does the applicant want to, would you please, who's here to represent the applicant? Just one person, Art?
There's
anybody else
here.
Would whoever's going to be here for the applicant identify yourself, please?
Yeah, my name is Art Ostrike, owner.
Okay, and who else, please? This gentleman here? And Matt Toddy? Would all of you who are going to speak for the applicant, please raise your right hand? Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say I do.
I do.
I do.
Thank you very much. Okay. Go ahead for the applicants, please.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for taking us today in front of the commission. My name is Art Ostrike with Jackie O's, and I just wanted to say Jackie O's has been around for about 15 years, and we've been based in Athens. We celebrate our 15th anniversary a couple months ago, and we've grown from 6 employees to 120 pre-COVID in Athens. We've always looked at Columbus as our home market and as a place we wanted to have a physical brick and mortar presence, which brings us here. We're very all of our facilities include outdoor spaces, and when we purchased an elevator, we were very excited and enthused with what we could do with this patio that you're seeing on your screens right now, and where that can go to really put a statement on a parking lot in a downtown area that is always in need of more green space. So I could talk for days, but we're in the midst of hopefully pulling out of this pandemic, and with the pandemic, we're really hoping to get open sooner than later because a lot of society is ready to outside and maybe not ready to be inside. So moving forward with this, that's a big rationale there. I did want to say that we have been excellent stewards and neighbors in Athens all these years. We've never really gotten any violations for anything along the way, and that it does include noise. And we are in a very pedestrian location. We're in a residential locations, and we are very cognizant and serious about making sure that we are friendly neighbors.
Okay. Let's go. Are there any other comments then, or any? Are you done, Art? Or did you get cut off?
No, Matt is going to jump in and give you a tour of this proposal.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Matt, I don't think we can hear you.
I'm sorry, if Matt is there, would Matt identify himself, please? Have we met Matt? Okay, and Matt, you got sworn in, right?
Hey, Nolan. Oh, there he is. Okay, sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, yes, we can. I think.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm called in on the computer. I don't know what's going on with the audio. Anyway, hi, I'm Matt Cotty. I did get sworn in, architect at Design Collective. Louis, I know you and I discussed, do we want to try and share my screen and I can walk everyone through the model as I explain this project?
Sure.
Great. All right, if everyone can see this, so where we're at right now is in front of 165 North 4th Street. So this brick building you're seeing is the existing retail frontage that was the former Elevator Brewing facility. And what we're seeing is the patio as we're proposing it. So immediately to the north of the 171 building, we're proposing this kind of garden entry. This tree is existing. We'd like to kind of maintain that tree if possible. And you enter in off of 4th Street through this kind of urban garden. There'd be a food truck, permanent spot for a food truck to park. And then you enter in under the mezzanine here. So we've got some covered dining areas. We've got this brick area that we're going to use Athens block brick pavers that were made and sourced from down in Athens. And then as you enter in this space, we've got a long ramp that kind of walks along the northern edge. We've got this mesh screen wall that divides the parking lot to the north from the patio and kind of provides a little bit of enclosure. And as you go up this ramp, you'll kind of see, as you see down below, we've got the covered area along with some tiered decking on the exterior of the mezzanine. And the reason for the tiers is this site actually drops about 4.5 feet, about 56 inches from 4th Street to Lozelle Alley to the west. So we've got a series of ramps and steps that kind of bring us down and navigate that grade change down to Lozelle Alley. Here in the very middle of the patio, we've got 2 shipping container bars that are stacked one on top of each other, one to service the lower level and one to service the mezzanine. Again, this ramp kind of continues up. Once you get to the back half of the parking lot, it kind of it continues west, and over this viewing area, we've got a projector screen where we could show, you know, broadcast games and sports and whatnot. We've got some seating, covered seating cabanas underneath, some fire pit seating out in the open space, and then the ramp continues around to the back of the mezzanine here, where we've got more seating upstairs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let our landscape architect, Jeff, kind of weigh in a little bit about some of the plantings that he's got planned. Jeff, you want to chime in here?
Hey, I'm Jeff Kiter. Sorry, I'm showing up as default user 0 here. I tried to fix that next time maybe. So what we're doing is, you know, step one, of course, is to keep the mature tree along the perimeter of the parking lot that we have. That's always your best tree, is your tree that's already alive and full and mature. Is just the various native plants of the sort of central Ohio region. So where we're in closer to the building and it's a little shadier, we have a variety of woodland ferns and vines that are going to cover all of these. We have some honeysuckles. I'm going to try hops just as a reference to the brewing that's going on here. And then where we're more exposed up on top of the mezzanine and out in front where we're capturing some stormwater from the parking lot runoff, we're going to pick up a lot of the prairie grasses that would have been native to this area before the city was here. And then just a lot of mature trees wherever we have opportunities. We have a few planting pits. We have this long strip at the base of the planter wall that'll be covered with vines, but river birches to really soak up a lot of that water that's coming in and start to provide shade and canopy in what is currently just a vast parking lot. I think it'll really start to create this green oasis in the neighborhood that I think will really stand out and just bring people to the site and really start to develop some of this open area in the neighborhood.
Yeah, that's perfect, Jeff. Appreciate that. One thing I'd like to point out to the commission is we are planning to repurpose a 60-barrel fermenter tank as stormwater retention for irrigation purposes. So the current site, the stormwater from the roof currently just discharges and sheet drains to existing catch basins in this parking lot. We're going to redirect that runoff into this fermenter that sits on the mezzanine and use that as gravity-fed irrigation throughout the property.
So where is that water runoff from? The roofs of the building?
Yeah. So that the current roof of the 171 building currently just sheet drains off the corner here, the northwest corner, into the parking lot. So we're going to redirect that and capture that that runoff. At this time, I would like to open it up to the commission for any questions or comments.
We have
arcaded wall with the plants on it. What is that made of?
So that'll be a mesh screen. It'll be a little bit more transparent than it shows up right now on your screen. But it would be, really a transparent mesh screen that allows the vines to kind of grow up and through. And the hope is that over time that wall would be completely green. We're looking at various metal meshes.
Over what? Over a steel structure?
Yeah, there'll be a structural steel skeleton that sits within the mesh.
Thank you.
I have a question about, are you intending to use this all year round? Because some portions of it do have roof structure over it, but I don't see any portion that's completely enclosed. So is the intention that even though it is somewhat open, even in winter months, it would be temperate enough with heaters? Or is there an idea that portions of it could actually become completely enclosed with maybe something retractable?
Right now, we all know Ohio weather and what it throws at us from time to time. I don't know how much we would have been open in the past 3 weeks. I don't believe upstairs would be open during weather events. Downstairs, we do envision having some great heat and the ability to keep patrons warm in there. In terms of fully closing, not 100. I would like to have a couple places enclosed, but it would be more of your patio enclosure, not full tilt building enclosed.
Right. And for restrooms, is that in the adjacent building? I know you have there is an actual building that's adjacent that says Jackie O's. Is that where those amenities would be?
That's correct. Matt is showing you very well right now that door on your screen. When you walk in that door to your right, there will be a bank of, I believe, 5 bathrooms.
Okay. And in that building, is that, I can't remember, a retail store in there for your products? I can't remember what's inside.
It was a retail store built for 1980s consumption that is not ready for 2020's consumption. So we're going to be updating that in further phases of the project. Right now, with 2020 and 2021, and where we're at is with society, we didn't want to put our focus inside. We wanted to stay outside due to what we've been dealing with in the past.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question, well, a comment and question. I think it's very exciting. I really appreciate your approach to this whole thing and the exterior space it's going to create and the integration of landscape into this solution. My question is about maybe a little less exciting, but how are you thinking about the frontage at the corner there and how you may be dealing with that surface parking lot? I'm just particularly interested in how to mitigate and screen and soften the surface parking lot that will remain.
Yeah, that's a great question, Ted. Or go ahead.
No, you go, Matt.
Yeah, so we envision, obviously, we're creating this edge between the patio and the existing parking lot to remain. And Jeff mentioned it actually is not shown in this view, unfortunately, but we do anticipate a row of natural or planting here of indigenous species, grasses and whatnot, as Jeff kind of mentioned, that will start to soften this edge from the parking lot. And really, the hope is that over time this wall will grow in and be fully kind of enveloped as a green wall.
Do you own the parking lot?
The parking lot is the same parcel as the patio, so it will all be controlled the same. Yeah.
And so, yeah, related to that, then I'm thinking about, and I'm guessing you have probably very little room between the right of way. Is that Spring Street? Is that 4th and Spring?
So there's 4th, and then Spring is up here. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have this public streetscape that honestly, for years has not been the most visually appealing thing coming in along Spring Street. So I guess I'm looking for something that it may be fence. It could be plant material if you have the room to do it. So I'm just curious as to how we mitigate the parking lot from the public street corner also.
Could we see a site plan again?
Yeah, let me. Louis, would you mind pulling the plans back up? We did discuss that, Ted. There are a number of existing parking islands around the perimeter of that lot to the north. It might be back a few sheets there. Oh yeah, the satellite's fine.
That'll work for a site plan.
Yeah.
So there's 2 islands there on the 4th Street side, and then a handful as you move around Spring there on the kind of middle, and then 2 on Lozelle. Those we anticipate keeping. There are a handful of existing plantings. Nothing is particularly exciting or healthy, I would say.
Right. And I think that the majority of that Spring Street frontage, though, it looks like you're really probably, there it is. Yeah, very limited. And I guess what could we do, even if it's fence? Again, you'd need those parking blocks to keep vehicles from bumping up against something. But I just think that's such an important corner, and you making this kind of investment in this facility, I think we need to think about what happens along that ridge.
It's a shame not to do the streetscape, improve the streetscape on that corner with all that other investment.
Well, I think we would love to do something. We want to, we're really hoping to gauge your interest and excitement towards this project, and would, are really looking for feedback. With that being said, we are, about to unleash society back into society in the not too distant future. So timing is kind of important to us, but we would love to explore doing that. We've talked about it internally amongst the four of us on how to improve that as well, and would love to look at that. I know Jeff would love to tackle that.
We'd love to get rid of the billboard.
No comment.
You know, it's interesting you mentioned the billboard because on one of your renderings that, you know, show inside your garden, you can see the back of the billboard and there's nothing there. It's just blank. It's the back. And I'm wondering if there's an opportunity. I don't know, you know, how whoever owns that billboard would feel, but maybe there's an opportunity to do something artistic on the back, just like you have on your walls.
I would love to attack that, and I will happily do that in conversations with the powers that be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How's go ahead. I'm sorry, Nan.
I was going to say, and I don't know, like in the rendering, it looked like you really can see the back of it from seating. But when I was looking at the site plan, it looks like maybe that sight line isn't as prominent as it looked in the rendering. So it might not be as crucial. But in one of the renderings, it looked like you can really see the back of it and it really obstructs views. But looking here, it looks like not really because it's completely it's perpendicular.
Right.
Okay, those are comments. Let me ask you a question. What's the connection? I'm not totally understanding the connection to the existing building. Is that where your restrooms are going to be?
Correct. Yeah. So
Okay.
so there's
Is there
currently
a
an
bar
overhead
inside
door.
there now, and that'll continue to be there? Is that the idea? Are you going to?
So there's no at present there's no bar service inside.
Okay.
There's currently an overhead door that's kind of at the corner where the building kind of jogs back to the south and gets a little skinnier.
Okay.
And that overhead door will be replaced with storefront, which will be the entrance to the restrooms.
Ah, okay. So that's how you get in and out of restrooms. Okay.
Exactly. We're also putting a convenience store on the closer to the frontage on the northern side of the 171 building, but that's strictly for convenience sake.
Will you serve food in this facility then, or just drinks?
We will, Steve, have food, and with phase 2, we will have a food truck permanently. That we will always have food. We are also working and developing our relationship with Freedom a la carte, which you guys referenced in this meeting today. They're at the corner of Spring and North Lozelle that you guys approved a couple of weeks ago. We've definitely been becoming better friends with them. So there are some food outlets, and we will have a food truck at all times.
So there's no kitchen facility on your with your operation here. Is that correct?
At this point in time, that is correct, but there will be when society is back to normal.
Okay.
So
go ahead, Bob.
Louis, we had a letter from somebody. What property owner was that? What address?
I think he's the one to the south, isn't he?
I have to unmute myself. Yeah, give me a moment here. I can pull it up. So it's the UHS University Housing Solutions, which is directly to the south. It's this building right here. They had some concerns about noise and how it would affect their business.
Which building is that one, Louis? The small,
Right here.
the 1-story?
No, the 4-story.
4-story. Okay.
Oh, that's Dr. somebody or other.
So what I couldn't really understand whether they had a problem or they didn't have a problem. Or
I couldn't either. It was pretty vague.
Yeah, I think kind of like what we said in our staff report. I mean, it seems like a great project. They said they didn't have anything specifically against it, but they were concerned about maybe light and noise and how that would affect their business.
I want to understand if we're going to approve this thing. And by the way, I like it. I think it looks great. You've got certain graphics on the building, which are not graphics. That's when we say the G word, we get into some kind of a convoluted thing, but in terms of, let's call it signage, you've got your Jackie O's thing up on you got pictures of parrots and stuff like that. Are you, and then I mean, do we need to approve lighting, and do we call that signage, and some of these things, and do we have the details on the railings and all of this?
This is conceptual, isn't it?
Oh, this
Louis?
is conceptual. Oh, I'm sorry.
Is that right?
What?
We are, Steve
No.
and Bob, we are asking for action for approval, but
That's what I thought.
I'll address your question, Steve. The graphics and signage are placeholder at this point. We understand that we would need to provide more information on what that graphics and signage will be.
And then how about lighting? Are you going to come back on lighting, or?
Lighting, I believe lighting has been included.
You showed us some fixtures in there, and I think those look fine. Okay, so that's what you're asking for.
Yep.
I guess what I'm trying to get to is, are we ready to approve this? Commissioners, anybody?
Well, I wanted to know the hours of operation, because there is a residence near there, I think that was pointed out. And I'm assuming you're going to have music, and maybe not, but I'm wondering, let's see, what are your hours of operation and how loud does it get? Just from your experience in Athens. I know you said in Athens it really didn't seem to be much of a problem, and you were in a dense area.
From my experience in Athens, great question. From my experience in Athens, we tend to turn the music off outside. We don't have live music outside in Athens, and I don't see us having live music after 10 o'clock on those weekdays, on that Sunday, 10 p.m. through Thursday, 10 p.m. If we were going to have live music out there, and I'm really reluctant to say that because we haven't done much of that in the past couple of years in Athens either, but it will be quiet come 10 o'clock Sunday through Thursday, and if at 10 and 11 o'clock on the weekends, I believe that's the noise ordinance times, and if there are any complaints, we're gonna quiet that thing down. Again, my comment about being a very good neighbor and steward is important to me, and I don't take that lightly. So.
Okay, and other than the live music, do you have speakers with recorded music, or just it's either the live music or no music?
We will have speakers there with recorded music. What we found works best is to have more speakers at lower volumes than fewer speakers at higher volumes, so that you have equal distribution throughout, so that you can still communicate with the people at your table and maybe the table next door.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Are there any other questions for the applicants? Anything from the commission?
To figure out if we have enough detail here to call this final
I'm trying
approval.
to figure that out too.
Lots of nice rendering.
And there are, I mean, they've shown us the materials and so on. But I have a little bit of trouble reading these drawings here, actually. And by the way, I like the materials. I like your brick
I think
pavers.
it looks great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we have some unresolved issues if we want to have them come back, have them address Hardesty's concerns about the parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
But if we ask them to come back, let's tell them specifically what we want them to bring back to approve it, or if we like it. I think I'm hearing we like it. And so either let's approve this or tell them very specifically what we want to see. And maybe, by the way, we can approve it and then have them come back on the details if there's a specific detail we need to see.
What's your schedule?
We are hoping to get this moving as quickly as possible. With as Art mentioned, patio season is upon us. The sun is shining today, even. Starting to think about this. So we would definitely be open to a conditional approval and bring back details for your review or staff approval if necessary.
What's your schedule for getting the drawings done?
Really, at this point, we're waiting for this approval to get our CDs, and we're hoping to get our CDs submitted for plan approval within the next 3 weeks.
Wow. We've got a lot to do.
We do.
We do.
I mean, my only concern, I mean, I love it, but my concern is there's no detail at all. I mean, we don't know how it's built. We don't know what the structure is. You know, we don't know what the railings are. We don't, you know, we usually see pretty complete drawings. I mean, the very far end of design development or halfway through construction documents to see what it is physically we're approving.
If you're going to do your construction drawings and have those ready in 3 weeks, we're going to have a meeting in 4 weeks. If we had all those details, I mean, there's a lag in there, maybe of 1 week. Is there anybody that has a problem with what we're seeing?
No.
No.
Commission, I am hearing none. Okay, I don't know if that gives you a comfort level to pull the trigger on the construction drawings. But I would think it would be a very quick approval. Tell us what I think we're looking for are just the details on railings, you've got cables there, you've got, what else do we need on this thing? I see the lighting.
Yeah.
We don't care about, I don't think we care about your furniture there, obviously. The wall, I got a question on the wall. Is part of that concrete block as well then that's infilled with fencing material? I didn't quite understand the detail on that. Or is the whole
there's
thing
no proposed masonry. Everything is proposed as poured in place board form concrete.
On the walls, okay.
Yeah.
And it's you've shown us the finish on it. What's the pleasure of the group?
Maybe, approve it, but conditionally where they have to show those details and just the structure as well, like a structural drawing and the details.
Okay, is everybody prepared to do that? Do you want to make a motion to that effect, Jana?
Move to approve with the condition that the applicant comes back with details of the railings, of what did we say, of the cables, of I guess maybe the major details on the project and a drawing of the actual structure.
Jana, would you mind adding a comment about parking lot screening?
Yes, yes, of course. Sorry. And the parking lot, and also drawings of parking lot screening and any other sitescape improvements.
And are you showing are we seeing on these drawings here where all the lighting is located? I mean, I noticed you showed us the fixtures. Matt, are you showing us where the lighting is?
Yeah, we did include a reflective ceiling plan, which we can provide more detail to that end as well.
Okay, and I think part of what we might want to see is what kind of light, like you have on the building, the existing building, and how that's going to, in other words, is that going to shine off into the distance and into the adjacent buildings and things like that. So if you can clean up, add lighting, just a little more detail on the lighting. Okay, I think that we've got a motion then. Is there a second for that motion? With those conditions? Ted, you're muted. Is that a second?
I second. I was muted. I'm sorry.
So there is a motion on the floor. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Bob Loverzage, is that all right with you with these conditions?
No, I'm going to vote no. I can't approve the schematic design based on renderings. I love the design. I think it's going to be great, but I just think it sets a bad precedent when we approve things that are an idea, not a design.
Okay, well, all right. That's one comment. Are there any other comments then from the commission? I guess I agree with Bob, but I think that this is actually pretty well detailed here. So I guess I have some amount of comfort in having these guys come back and flesh out the details on this thing. And I'm also sensitive to the to the timing on the thing here. So I guess I don't know what this means for Lewis though, if you can issue the permit, but basically we got to have the details. So, and some of these details do relate to the construction, don't they?
Right. I mean, so the way it works for me is I'm stamping their final permit set. So until all these details are fleshed out, they won't be able to submit for permitting regardless. So
that means they can't get the permit till after the next meeting anyway, right?
exactly. So I'm saying if you just want to have them return, that can, there's no reason to approve it now. You guys have given them positive feedback if you want to just wait.
Okay. Applicants, did you hear that? Does that work for you? I'm sorry. Can you come back next month? I think you'll get a quick approval, but if you flesh this out, we'll run it through quickly. Does that work?
So great feedback.
Yep, good feedback. Thank you.
Good, thanks. I assume Jana will withdraw her motion then, and Ted.
Yes, I withdraw it. I think
Okay.
that's a better solution,
I agree. Okay, thanks very much. This looks good. I think we all like the project. We'll see you
That's
next
gonna be
month.
great.
Very excited.
Thanks very much.
All right.
Okay, next
Appreciate it.
case,
Thank you.
Lewis.
All right.
Done sometime today. Lewis, next case.
Yes. So next case, let me pull it up here. So it's 155 East Broad Street. Let me pull it up on the map here for you. There we go. So it's right here. This is going to be regarding the Skywalk proposal. Now here we are in for conceptual reviews now. The Skywalk on Capitol Street. I went out and I took site visit pictures that I can share with you. Pull it up. Okay. There we go. So here we have the Skywalk. You can see kind of its length as it exists right now. This is it looking down Capitol Street. There's a close-up. You can see its construction. They're going to be removing this existing Skywalk and filling in these rectangles with a park walk. Here it is on Capitol Street as it exists now. Here is the stairs that you use to access it halfway through. You can see here it is. This is the Columbus Club, I believe it's called, right here next to it. It's pretty close. Here it is where it would tie into the building that came before us earlier, and here it ties into the parking garage. And here you can see it looking down. This is the inside. This will all be removed. And here you can see this is where it's going to extend to the end of Capitol Street, and Capitol Street will be closed off at this location as well. So with that, let me pull up the staff report. So I kind of went into detail there. They're going to renovate and expand it. So the park walk will be 760 feet in length and span 3 city blocks. It will provide a ½ acre of urban park space that is approximately 70% vegetated. Public access would occur from South 3rd Street, South 4th Street, and the South Young Garage. And the project will result in the closure of a portion of Capitol Street near South 3rd Street intersection. Here's a narrative that was provided with the staff report. You can read that if you'd like. Our analysis is the guidelines support plazas, courtyards, and other public spaces. However, skywalks are generally not supported because street-level pedestrian activity is critical to the downtown's quality of life and energy. Additionally, the guidelines stress the importance of improving the public realm and pedestrian experience at the street level. So in summary, the proposal increases park space, but it could potentially have negative effects on connectivity and the first street level experience. Planning has some concerns regarding security of this space, its effects on the streetscape below, and the loss of connectivity by closing off Capitol Street. These concerns were conveyed to the applicant. And that's it for my presentation.
Okay. Who's here for the applicant then, please?
Hi, Karen McCoy.
Okay.
Tim Smallberger.
Jeff and Tim. Okay. We have already sworn in Jeff. Would Karen and Tim please raise your right hand? Do you swear and affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So say I do.
I do.
Thank you very much. Okay, applicant.
Okay. So can we bring up the slides?
Sure.
Sure.
Lewis?
Yep. Oh, it's Jackie.
Let's try to move beyond Jackie O's.
There we go. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. So this slide basically gives you the context in the downtown area. You can see in the center of the slide is the PNC Tower. The Galleria building exists to the left of that. And then you can see the large parking structure to the right of that, which is the Plaza parking garage. And as Lewis had mentioned, that this is a proposal to basically establish a downtown urban park that will span the 3 blocks between South 3rd Street and South Young Street, bringing a half an acre of green space to the area and increasing tree cover and vegetation. So if we can go ahead and advance the slide. Here you can see kind of an overhead view. This is from 3rd Street looking to the east. You see the dispatch building on the right, the existing Galleria building on the left. Next slide, please. These are some views. These will supplement what you've already seen from Lewis, but you can see basically the Galleria building has vehicular functions along Capitol Street. Capitol Street basically in this area functions as almost a service alley to support the services to these buildings as well as access to underground parking. Sidewalks are very narrow. There are no street trees, and so it's very difficult to provide the pedestrian amenities at the street level. The existing structure that is there provided the connection from the PNC Tower to the parking garage to the east. And this proposal then is to basically keep that structure in place, but remove the roof, remove the glass, and create an elevated park walk that's kind of inspired by the High Line, basically. Next slide. So this is just a close-up view to give you more context where you're seeing the Galleria building, the dispatch building, the existing PNC. So the extension of the elevated walkway would extend from behind the PNC building out to the 3rd Street intersection. And so that amounts to about a third of the length of the existing elevated structure being constructed. Next slide. And this is the east end of that existing structure that spans 4th Street, goes past the Columbus Club, and right now connects to the Capitol Plaza parking garage. To the north was the site of the proposed 195 East Broad Street development you saw earlier. Next slide. So here you can see an illustration in the greater context of what this urban park would be. You know, you see the length of it and the amount of green space that would be added to the downtown. Basically, the length of this park provides connectivity between all of these buildings. It provides access to potential future development in the surface parking lot areas. And it does bring that level of activity and walkway up off the street, but development of buildings to the south of this are likely to be podium buildings and, you know, with parking at the lower levels. So we feel like this connection is appropriate to the uses of the mixed use buildings that would be surrounding the park. Next slide. This is just zooming in and to give you basically a little better view of the aerial view of the proposed plan go ahead and move to the next slide, please. And so this is the detail of the west end of the proposal. And here you could see renovation of the plaza in front of the Galleria building, which amounts to renovation of the existing planters, adding casual seating to the planters, outdoor cafe space. And you begin to see the elevated terraces here, and that would transition up to the elevated walkway. There is a prow kind of overlook that extends out over the right-of-way on South 3rd Street. So that basically is giving you, it not only overlooks the Capitol grounds, but it also provides views north and south on South 3rd Street.
Karen, is that black square an elevator?
It is, yes. And
Thank you.
we have that illustrated further in the model.
Yeah.
You can, go ahead.
I'm sorry, you finish. I'll in 1 minute. Go
ahead.
Okay, okay, I wanted to ask you, because you have the slide up now. So you spoke about the fact that there's access to garages here. Now, is that just for the PNC Tower or the Galleria building as well?
The Galleria building has an underground parking structure. If you look at the plan, you'll actually see that the width of the elevated structure narrows towards the east end of the Galleria building.
Hmm.
And that's where the access is to the parking garage and also to loading facilities.
The access for the Galleria building is off of this street here, this alley?
Yes.
Okay, and as well for the PNC Tower?
The PNC Tower has loading functions.
Okay.
On this side, basically on Capitol Street. So, you know, we're talking about trash removal, loading of goods, all of those types of things would happen.
And you're showing
Capitol Street.
Okay, and it looks like you're showing me that on the Galleria that access to the garage is off onto the east end of the building. I mean, it's on the south.
Correct.
But it's access on the east end of the south.
Yes. So the proposed closure of Capitol Street is about half of the block, so that there is still maneuvering and service room basically to the west of that parking garage entrance, so that there's plenty of room to maneuver vehicles around in that area.
So is there still pedestrian access through there?
There is. Pedestrian sidewalk on the south side adjacent to the dispatch building will be kept. And actually the idea is that when the street closes, the street level would be brought up to the top of the curb level. So you would have flush condition all the way on 3rd Street. You know, the drive would go away. 3rd Street, that sidewalk would become continuous, running north-south, and at that same level would enter back into the site for half the block.
What's underneath? What ends up underneath this structure then? Is it at the same elevation as where it crosses 4th Street? When it runs along the not what's the west of the building there.
It's at the same elevation that crosses 4th Street, runs along the PNC building, and then actually crosses Lozelle Street, and also spans that area where access is to the garage, all at the same elevation. And then it transitions a little lower. It starts to transition down as it moves to the west.
Okay, and how far, so when you get onto it there, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the name of the building west of the PNC building.
Galleria?
The Galleria. When it runs along the Galleria, what elevation is it there?
The top of the structure is 14.5 feet.
Is it the same height as when it runs along behind the PNC building and over 4th Street?
Behind the PNC building, it's at, it is higher.
So in other words, there's a grade, it goes up.
There's a grade transition,
from 3rd
yes.
Street going, which I think is good, by the way. I think that's interesting. But what do you have underneath it then? As it runs along the Galleria building?
As it
Is that
runs
just a
along the
big void?
No, it's also a pedestrian terrace down below. It has potential to be a dining patio or spill out space for tenants in the Galleria building. We have model illustrations further in the presentation we can show you.
And then, have you talked to the dispatch people, the owners there on the building south of you and the property south of you?
Yes, there has been
Are they on board with
conversations, and I would let Jeff Edwards address that question.
Okay.
Yes, Steve, I met with Chris Roos, who's representing the both family interest and dispatch interest there. And technically, we're kind of being careful about our words here because we are not planning to actually vacate the alley. There's some utilities, et cetera, in there. And if you use the word vacation, then they need to come out of there, and we'd prefer not to move those. And so it really, as Karen said, becomes another pedestrian space down, at grade level though, between the gallery and the dispatch building. I mean, currently this walkway is of a great benefit, obviously, to the dispatch properties and their land holdings there because they own that big garage. And currently what happens is everybody, except for our tenants, cuts through the Galleria building, rides up the escalators inside of our gallery building, cuts through the PNC building to get on that enclosed walkway to get to the parking garage. It's kind of a security nightmare, to be honest with you. So this, on top of, I think, being a good solution in terms of urban park and green space and being a much more pleasant way to connect what will be major developments, it gets us out in the open and gets them from a security perspective out of our building.
Okay.
So in this slide, you're looking at the existing walkway. This is behind the PNC building. And we're looking at expanding the width of the walkway in certain areas, not expanding beyond those existing sort of outrigger truss structures, except where we connect to the buildings. And the existing, the width of the bridge, the long span across 4th Street stays intact the way it is, where we would be removing the roof, but the overhead structural system remains in place and becomes a pergola type effect for that bridgeway. And then we begin to look at widening the structure again by adding planters to the side of the structure as you move further to the east. Next slide, please. So this shows the east end of the walk, and basically it shows the possibility for expanding this overhead structure if the parking lot to the south were to develop so that there could be connection to that building. We've added planters on the north side, basically in the areas where the surface parking lot spans both sides of the Columbus Club, which allows us to bring, sort of more vegetation to this walkway and provide a little bit of a soft veil between that and the view down to the surface parking. You can see at areas we do have some informal bench seating, and then at the very east end, we develop a terrace that provides entry to the proposed 195 East Broad Street and also enhances the connection to the Capitol Plaza garage. Next slide, please.
Hey, Karen, can you get off of this thing at the end?
You can get off at the east end at the garage.
Is the garage open 24/7?
I believe it is. That's a good question.
And is there an elevator at that end?
There is.
Yeah, there is inside the building there.
Yeah.
And then there's also a public access stair, which occurs right at 4th Street. It's sort of in the middle of the structure. So this shows you the model that's been created, and this is basically showing you the sort of terraced access up to the elevated walkway. you can see the overlook that extends out on the east end of this structure, and some of the planter improvements. This all occurs behind the right of way, except for the overhang of the elevated prow. Next slide, please. Here you can see that access lift, and there's access to the stairs that ascend up to the elevated walkway, both for southbound pedestrian travel and northbound pedestrian travel on 3rd Street. And there's also the lift. And you begin to see the character behind that under the structure, where there would be planters and the possibility of seating, outdoor dining, any kind of amenities that could for both the buildings adjacent to this property. Next slide, please. So here you can see the character of the space under the structure.
Ah, good. Okay.
And you can also see that the sidewalk on the south side is maintained free and clear.
We haven't had a good bar at the Galleria site for a long time.
So would this portion of the street be vacated then, as if you're going to be using it like this?
That's another question I would direct to Jeff Edwards.
So, okay, conceptual here. Okay.
I mean, again, we're attempting to make it pedestrian, accessible, but not a true vacation.
And Jeff, have you guys had conversations with public service about that aspect and just blocking it off to vehicular traffic? Are they okay with that?
We've had, preliminary conversations with them. I mean, it's kind of believe it or not, that is a two-way street there, and it is completely blind when you make a left turn out of there because of, first of all, it's one-way traffic heading south at a pretty good speed, usually, especially if the light's green. Yeah. And then there's parking meters that completely block your view to the north. So I think I'm the only one ever that probably travels down there for obvious reasons, and it's not very safe, really, quite frankly.
Okay.
I like the fact that you're treating underneath the elevation so well, that you're really making that a green space and, something that you still can have access through for pedestrians. So it looks like even though you're shutting that off at the west end for vehicles, that pedestrians can still walk through to 3rd. Is that correct? From 3rd
yes.
all the way through.
Yes, yes, there's complete connectivity.
Okay, and I had one comment about this. There's so many things about this I really like, and I think it makes a lot of sense, and it's a big improvement. But I'm wondering and I know this is conceptual, so I'm wondering at the 3rd Street, at that west end, you are high, you get to that height, or maybe not the full height, but I think you said the 14 feet high pretty quickly. And I'm wondering if that could happen more gradually, because then there's an illusion that you are at 3rd Street. This still is this is still a ground level experience. You're still connected to 3rd Street in general, and then it more gradually ramps up. And that might not be possible because it seems that you're already ramping it up, but it's just a thought to engage it more with the street and not have that bulk so drastically, and then just gradually. So you have that sort of ground street experience, and then you have the elevated experience as you travel east.
Yeah, one of the things we do need to be cognizant of is the utilities that are in the street. So maintaining the open air access to that. So that's one of the considerations we had when we looked at, actually doing exactly what you talked about, infilling that area, with elevated terraces to get up to the top level of the walkway. But yeah, your comment is definitely duly noted.
Yeah, and maybe as you work on it, obviously you'll have section cuts and you can really see where ideally you want to place everything. But it's beautiful and very creative. And while I'm thinking one other thing, do you have any concerns? Because it used to be where people would walk from the building, from the office building into the garage, and it would be covered in bad weather. And of course, there's something very nice about it being open. But are you thinking that maybe portions of it might have some type of interesting canopy, I don't know, maybe made out of some type of glass or some type of metal or perforation, so that if the weather is very bad, there is a little bit of shelter from that, or maybe less likelihood for a lot of snow accumulation or something like that. Maybe maybe dispersed throughout that top level.
Yeah, we haven't contemplated that right now because what we were really trying to do was bring a lot more plants, a lot more trees, a lot more vegetation to this area that has no vegetation right now. So in terms of looking at sustainability, the city's climate action plan, the urban forestry master plan, we were trying to really maximize the amount of plants and green space we could put into this area.
I have to ask this question just because it's winter, but what about snow removal and salt on that structure or whatever? I mean, how do you close it when it's snowy, or do you remove the snow? How do you handle that?
Well, we would have to maintain the structure. There's obviously under drains and drainage for this area. We haven't talked about snow melt for this project, but
you may just heat the side. I mean, they might want to just heat the sidewalk, I think. And just
that would be ideal.
Yeah.
And then we looked at, to go back to an earlier question, the original idea was to take the sides off of this structure and get some airflow through it, because it's really awful. If any of you have ever been in it, it's hotter in the summer than it is outside, and it's colder in the winter than it is outside. It's just terrible. It smells like some combination of a natatorium and a locker room. And so it's kind of, I didn't know how much money we need to spend to make it actually attractive and have it work well, and kind of figuring out the roof and all that. So we just decided it was a lot better idea to ultimately open it up. I mean, ultimately, people who do use it currently, they still walk into a cold or a hot parking garage when they exit it. So you're exposed to the elements at one end or the other. And so we thought it was a lot better idea to just get rid of it and open it up entirely.
Next slide. So here you just see a bird's eye view of the park walk. Basically, you can see the amount of vegetation and how it moves through to the east end of the project site. Next slide. This is showing you more of the character of the amount of vegetation and trees that will be added up here. It's a pathway that ranges between 8 and 10 foot in width and has some side pull-offs for benches and respite seating that is tucked back into the vegetation. Next slide, please.
Karen, how do you get trees that big to grow on a bridge?
This structure is actually pretty deep. It's a 2 foot deep structure. So the existing structure. So what we're planning to do is to recess planters partway into that, that structure depth, and then have part of it raised out so that we can get the appropriate amount of soil level for the trees. The trees occur at the truss and column locations. That's how we determine the spacing. So the structural support is there, and then the rest of the walkway receives less soil depth appropriate to support the sort of native shrubs and grasses and perennials.
Great. Cool.
Next slide. This is approaching the intersection of Lazelle Street and Capitol, and the walkway kind of widens out at this point. There's an opportunity for an iconic piece of art there that would be visible looking north and south on Lazelle or east and west on Capitol Street, and it provides a bit of a gathering space. There would be pulled-in benches in this Paris area, intersection Paris. Next slide. Here you're on the existing structure, and this is behind the PNC building where there would be the connection to the building, the access. There's also proposed to be a juice bar, coffee bar, and so there's a little bit of an outdoor cafe here. Next slide, please. This is just once again giving you that general character of the walkway. This is the east end of the PNC building approaching the bridge across 4th Street. Next slide. So this is the character of the bridge across 4th. You can see that, you know, it retains the structural members of the covered walkway, and there are planters to the side with grasses, and we would also propose planting vines on the structure so that it becomes a bit of a pergola. Next slide. And so this is just across 4th, east of 4th Street. The Capitol Club is to the north, and Columbus Club, I'm sorry, is to the north, and you see the 295 East Broad Street proposed building has been rendered in. At this point, you would also see that if the lot to the south was developed, the walkway then could engage that project site area, and we're approaching the Capitol Plaza garage in this view.
Are you assuming, though, that you would build the wider walkway there onto the athletic club parking lot? Is that
could
onto
be
their
added,
property? Or?
It would be added in the future. What we're looking at constructing it is to stay within the existing walkway structure, you know, is set inside of those trusses. So what it would allow us to do is that area that you see to the right of this slide would then be, that would be added in the future when that part of the building was, you know, when that development occurred.
Okay.
Next slide, please. This is approaching the 295 East Broad and the garage, and we're back at the narrow width where we're staying within those truss locations. And you just see the character of the trees and the planting, and then this is the very east terminus of the walkway, access to the garage to the left and access to 295 East Broad to the right. And that's just a view looking west from a higher elevation. This is giving you an example of the type of furnishings that would be on the walkway, as well as planters. There would be built-in planters and some containers at building entrances. The walkway surface itself would be cast in place concrete, and we could be looking at varying it with different types of finishes. And below you see, you know, a view of the, basically the existing structure. So that same type of detailing would exist in the new portion so that it matches and looks like it's one continuous design. And then the following slides basically give you, they're basically the proposed planting character. And Lewis, if you just want to scroll through these are basically giving you examples of trees, ornamental trees, and different types of native shrubbery we would use. We're considering, you know, full season ornamental character, you know, with leaves, berries, textures, those types of things. And because we do have shade in certain areas, we can't use grasses everywhere. So we would also have a certain amount of ferns and ground covers that would be planted in these planters, along with potential vine cover.
I'm wondering if it's somewhere along the way you've got this. If you're going to look at this thing from either north or south, you got the streetscape. And by the way, I thought there was a comment in here, but we don't want to interrupt the pedestrian activity along. Is it Capitol Street there that this thing runs under?
Yes.
Well, I've been down there a lot, and there's no activity on Capitol Street from pedestrians for what it's worth. But visually, if you drive by and under this thing, I'm wondering if somehow or another you're going to see this black structure up here with plants on it, kind of up in the air. I'm wondering if somehow or another you could get, like you're showing a vining hydrangea, or you had even a wisteria or something like that could grow up from a planter at the base on some of these columns that hold it up, that might somehow or another just kind of relate it back to Earth. And I'm wondering if that could be interesting or attractive. I don't, there are certain places you got different owners or different, but maybe it's on the city right of way sidewalk or something. But that could actually, to my mind, could make it kind of tied back down to the ground here a little bit. I think it's exciting. The question I have is if from a utilitarian standpoint, who uses this? I mean, let's say there's an office worker at the state office tower. Do they come over here and take a walk along here because it's a pretty place, or is it a functional thing? I mean, it was put in originally to be very, very functional. It's going to go from the PNC office building over to the Capitol garage there. So what, I mean, you're going to use it, obviously. I mean, if you're in there, I think, and you're in a condo or an apartment at the PNC building, do you walk out here to get to the parking garage, or is this just for people to stroll by?
The PNC building is 50% residential, 50%, office, commercial, retail. So there's a fair amount of traffic of people who would travel from the parking garage to the PNC building. Additionally, this is providing green space. We would assume that the rest of the development would be mixed use, but largely residential. So this provides, an enhanced connectivity for them. The PNC building and the proposed 295 East Broad have shared amenities. So people would travel back and forth between there, but I could see it used as a general walkway getting down to 3rd Street. If you're, working in those buildings, or the Capitol parking garage is actually, the Plaza parking garage, is a public parking garage. So you could see someone parking downtown and using this to.
It's the fun way to get to their parking garage.
Yeah.
It's what they do now.
For what it's worth, it's gorgeous. But... Okay.
Thank you.
Do you have, I've forgotten when you were showing us the west, I'm sorry, the east end. Do you have a way when you get to the east end where the parking garage is to actually walk down from that structure, from the elevation just outside, or would you have to access the parking garage? So that, like right there,
yeah.
We're way down.
Currently, you would go through the parking garage.
I'm wondering, as you develop this, if you might want to consider a way down from the outside, because that way it might make it more conducive to people saying, this is such a lovely, interesting walkway. We're going to get one part of the downtown and walk across and get to 3rd Street this way. So it might be a way to engage more people without, if they're not involved in the parking garage or either one of those buildings.
Yeah, I agree. I think maybe I'm just thinking more in terms of egress. feeling like you're in a dead end corridor. I see you could go through the parking garage, but suppose it's locked or closed, or I don't know. I don't know if there's room there to do another stair like there is at 4th Street, maybe, but it seems like there should be a way out at the end. It's clear.
Okay.
And I really like Steve's idea about using those columns to have some type of vine or landscaping and tying it back down, because now you're using the fact that we are elevating something, but we're using the function of that to do something in terms of the landscape and enhance the ground level. So I think that would really be a wonderful addition.
Steve, do we want to take final comments and move on? We have 2 more cases.
Yeah, I think we do. This is obviously conceptual. Why don't we hear from everybody? Let's just, Jana, do you want to start?
Oh, you mean, with these comments? We'll
It's a
just
conceptual review. We're going to just ask you for any comments for the applicant.
Okay, well, I think I could just reiterate what I said, just the fact that looking at how on 3rd, if it's possible to engage the street a little bit more, to maybe make that scale a little bit lower there and gradually ramp up so that it's more of a, a ground street experience a little bit more than it is. And then on the other end, on the east end, looking at access there, so people can utilize it more, and also like Bob said, for means of egress. And I guess that's pretty much it.
Okay. Any other comments, Bob or Ted?
Yeah, I have one final comment, and that is, this is conceptual. We need a very clever name for this thing. We don't want to call it Highline because that's already been done. So when you come back, I think you should have a name on it.
Okay.
One final comment I have, I love it, love it. I do think though, just some thought about security, placemaking, if you will, under this. I think Karen, you said it is a service alley. It really functions that way. But I think as these buildings are repurposed and some of these surface parking lots are infilled, I think there will be more people down below this. So if there's something interesting with lighting or paint or something, that we give that pedestrian way some level of consideration. That's all I would say.
Okay. Any other comments? I like it too. I think it's one of the more interesting things we've seen. It can be a kind of a little highlight thing for the city here. And I agree also. I think it'd be interesting if it could be attached somehow or another to the ground in one form or another. Okay. That's, I think you've heard our comments. Thank you very much for bringing it in.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing it later. Okay. Next case, please, Louis.
Yes, the next case is DC 2102-002, 186-201 South Front Street. Let me pull that up here for you. This is
Okay, Louis, you're really loud again too. If you can.
My computer keeps messing around. I'll talk a little quieter and fix it later.
Okay,
that's the. Is this better? If I talk. So it's the annex building here south of West Town Street. And what they're proposing is removing these landscaped areas out of the building. So let me pull up some of the, I did a site visit so you can see what this looks like.
Steve, while Louis is doing that, this is Ted. I'll be recusing myself from this.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, Ted.
All right, here we go. So here you go. This is the annex. So these are interior spaces, but you can't see them from the streetway. You can actually walk up to this gate to look inside. This is what it looks like inside. You have kind of this formalized landscaping area with trees, shrubs, hedges, benches. This is looking into the north side. If you look in the south side, it's higher up, but you can still look inside, you know, and kind of see that green space. But you can walk inside as well. This is what it looks like. It's kind of at higher elevation than the interior parking. And I'll just go through here. You can see what this area looks like with the fencing, the landscaping, the hedges, kind of the furniture that they have going on. And so what we're saying is they're proposing to remove the 2 landscape courtyards and replace them with landscaped amenity decks. It will result in 52 additional parking spaces. The guidelines state that the built environment will continue to be enhanced and energized with new buildings and additions to existing structures that promote good design. Parking's impact on the built environment must be managed and should be designed in such a manner that benefit people's quality of life and community character. Landscaping should be designed to complement the overall development, and when possible, healthy mature trees should be preserved. The proposal modifies a previous commission-approved plan, adds additional parking, and would result in the loss of mature trees, and they are here for conceptual review as well. That's it for staff's presentation.
Okay, who's here for the applicant, please? Anybody else? Okay, would you identify yourself if you're here for the applicant?
Yeah, Tom Linsell from MA Architects.
Great.
Tim Skinner from Edge Landscape
Okay.
Architecture.
Do you, would you raise your right hands, please? Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So say I do.
I do.
I do.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, applicants.
Okay. Louis, can you put the our slides up?
Yeah, let me pull them up here.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. So the next slide. Okay, so this will be a bit of a repeat of the staff report, but here we are from the Google Earth view, showing it's really 2 buildings that face each other, and there's vehicle access along Front Street that goes into parking beneath the 4 legs of these 2 shaped buildings. And then there's the 2 raised courtyards. Next slide. Focus on one, and got some photos from last fall when it was still nice out, but there we are looking at the existing conditions. And okay, so yeah, next slide's good. Here's what it looks like from both Front Street and Wall Street, and you can see the vehicular access, although you can't really see the courtyards from the street other than through the carriageways, we'll say, that are on Rich Street and Town Street, I believe, which was helpful to show those extra existing condition photos as well. So, slide. Again, this was back when the trees were still had leaves, etc. And as you can see, there is some head-in parking there right now. Okay, next slide. Okay, so here is what's to be a street level plan showing new parking accessed from Front Street, and then the entrances into the garage spaces that are there now. And then there's pedestrian stair access to those decks that would be part of the new construction. And then next slide. And then here's just the basic outline of the decks as it stands. And then you can see those two carriageways that go to the right. It'd be north and south of these buildings, really, onto the sidewalk. Okay, next slide. Okay, pass the mic over to Tim from Edge.
Yeah, thanks, Tom, and good morning to everyone. I'll pause here on this slide for a moment. Obviously, the removal of the trees is something that will stand out to everyone and is something that we're not taking lightly with this project. But I think pointing out, we talked about those moments along Rich in town in terms of the portal view into these courtyards. In terms of the main impact from the public way along Front Street and Wall Street, where you have kind of that larger view corridor into these spaces, kind of highlighted it from the street views, but just kind of give you a sense and plan of the obstruction of that view and how much of these deck areas you really do see from street view. So certainly they're stepped back, and currently your view, you get just a hint of the walls that are there, but mostly you're seeing the head-in parking that is kind of right along the face of the buildings.
How many parking spaces do you have right now for this project?
Tom, do you have that full count?
I believe Trevor from the ownership group is on this call as well. Can you confirm that? I want to say it's 92, but don't quote me on that.
How many apartment units are here too then, please?
Hang on now. Let's see. Trevor, are you there? You might have to get sworn in.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, so there's someone else from the applicant?
Yes, hi, this is Trevor Arnold with Lifestyle Communities.
Can you turn on your video, please, Trevor?
Yep.
Sorry, Steve, go ahead.
Trevor, could you raise your right hand? Did you swear and affirm the testimony you're about to give us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Say, I do. Thank you. Okay. Question was, how many existing parking spaces are there and how many apartment units are there in the project?
Yeah, I apologize. I don't have that information right in front of me. I will pull it up right now, though.
You say you will pull it up? Okay, well, let's keep on going then. I didn't mean to interrupt. Who was talking? Tim. Go ahead, Tim.
If we can bring the presentation back up, we'll kind of get through that and then address those comments.
Sure. Thank you.
So from here, we'll kind of dive into, again, conceptually, the proposed plan of, as we are adding these parking spots, the notion of including an elevated deck. This is a proprietary system that is a steel deck. And we're somewhat limited because we're meeting kind of first floor or second floor elevation walkouts that are currently there with the corridors, but then also maintaining the appropriate clearance underneath for the parking. So if we can advance to the next slide here. What the owner is committing to LC is with these decks is providing a green roof system. So we're exploring how to not only recreate the appropriate amount of green space, and these would be tray systems, so extensive planting of soil depth of around 4 inches, with supplemented with pots along the structure to provide some larger material in a limited capacity, but trying to balance out the amount of greenscape that's there currently with, and actually trying to improve or add to the actual amenity space that's there for residents. If you recall the photos that we saw before, certainly the mature canopy trees and boxwood hedge, but the amount of usable space within those courtyards is somewhat limited, a little bit kind of private and garden-esque. And the thought here is while we are making these improvements and this investment to actually increase the amount of amenity space that's available for the residents along these decks. So next slide, please. We'll zoom into one of the courtyards, and we're looking at kind of a symmetry and identical treatment to both, but some combination and rhythm of still those private seating areas as well as some larger social spots, both for kind of living room type plush furniture as well as dining tables, lounge chairs, artificial turf area potentially. So looking at that 2x2 modular system of the roof trays and mixing up the material, so it's we're providing a little bit more richness and texture and material and color as opposed to what is there today. The other thing we'll point out here is that with the removal of the head-end parking along that main drive aisle that you can see from the streets from wall and from front, we will have room to actually get soil and provide mature canopy trees there. So actually that view from that public way will be much more buffered than it is today in terms of that greenscape and canopy and leaves. I will also point out that the existing trees that are there today, we believe they are calorie pears, which at this stage in the game are actually on the invasive species list from Ohio Department of Natural Resource. So I guess trying to keep that in mind as we're evaluating the loss of that tree canopy. So next slide. Kind of give you a hint of the material palette that we're looking at here. A combination of wood, paver, and artificial turf sequence for they're available with the trays to again provide a sense of scale for the linear courtyard to help break this up into 2 rooms. Plant material will be mostly the extensive lower plantings that are available within those tray systems, but again, supplementing that with external planters with medium to medium large material, but also looking at external structures, wood paneling, fencing to just help provide some sense of enclosure and privacy from the residents that are at that level, and also again try to break up the scale of the space. And also finally the light, looking at some kind of catenary fixture that will replicate the overhead canopy that we're losing with the loss of the trees. Next slide, please. So a couple of artistic renderings of the space, bird's eye view looking down on that. So you can see the parking kind of sneaking out below. We are actually working with the structural engineer right now to normalize and actually increase the size of the deck a little bit. So those larger openings that are currently you see in the foreground will actually be minimized, and we think we can extend that deck and extend the amount of planting to be about 6 to 8 feet away from the face of the building. So that will remain consistent, but the treatment of the rooms that we're creating will stay similar to what we're showing in the concept graphics here.
How wide will that walkway down through the middle be?
We're currently showing that as 8 feet for the walkway portion, and obviously it expands out as we get to the rooms.
I have a question. It looks like from this slide that the level of the cars will be not at the first floor level of the apartments. It will be lower than that, right? And that the first floor apartments will be looking out at the deck level.
That's correct.
Is that correct? I'm wondering too, because I know you're very tight for space with the parking, but if there was a way to, on that parking level, add a tree, just sort of have some type of planting that would actually grow up and be a little bit of a buffer as well, and then, reach out to that upper level.
Yeah, I appreciate that comment, and that notion ultimately comes down to the number of parking spaces, and if there's inability to reduce that count at all, and I'll defer back to LC and to Tom.
Well, I want to point out that in this rendering, you can see a couple of the new trees that would be planted at the entrances of these parking areas that I think was shown in plan as well. And those would be, well, if you can go back, Luis, a couple slides. Okay, so as you can see on the left, we have 4 trees, canopy trees shown there on the street level, if you will. That would be new plantings to replace, I think, the 8 that are up on the raised courtyard now.
Well, I think Jane is suggesting something
Within, like where?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know you're going, I think you said you were going to,
if we expand the deck out to that, right now you see the sawtooth of it coming in and out. If we extend the whole thing out, we're gonna have, that's gonna be a very limited area to get a tree growing through there, certainly, but I think it all comes down to the number of parking spaces that are going to be requested.
Yeah, I don't believe we're going to be able to incorporate trees within the parking itself.
I think anything you can do to soften it and make it lush and make it, just look as natural as possible would be good. And if you're expanding those areas, then maybe adding landscape on some type of shrubbery on either side, anything that I think can kind of give us a look and give that experience from the apartments looking out to look, a little bit less contested, because I think if you're looking out and you see all these things going on, it might not, it might be a little busy, but if you buffer it a little bit, I think that would help.
Are you talking about making the whole thing wider and not having the sawtooth kind of thing? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's basically, it would be a rectangular rather than this.
Because I kind of like the variety of them.
Yeah. I think he was saying that they were not, that what we're seeing here, I think he was saying that they were thinking of expanding the ones that are a little bit narrower.
Oh, right.
But I agree, I like the variety too, because it does break it up and it does give, maybe potential to do something else, possibly if there's room with landscaping.
What does this look like from town and Rich when you look through those, what you call carriageways?
Luis, can you go back to your photos?
And what is the access? How do you walk onto this deck? I see you have those stairways at the interior here.
Right.
But can you walk in from town and from Rich onto this deck, or is it confined to somehow or another to the project here, or how do you do that?
So similarly to how it is now, there's access, of course, through these carriageways, and then from the building itself. And then from the street level, we have stairways on either end. And
correct me if I'm wrong, go ahead, sorry.
Does that stairway go to the deck, or is the deck higher than that?
So the deck will connect into this archway, similar to the way the courtyard does now.
Okay.
And that's only on the north side, right? Not the south side.
Right.
Yeah.
Is any of this accessible to people with disabilities?
It will be from the building itself.
It was connected to a stairway.
It is. If you can go back to the plan view, please, you'll see that along
the stairs are in the middle there.
the opposite. So the side closest to there we go. So on the right side of the plan.
I see.
Yep.
And this is private for the residents only, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Any other questions or anything from
So,
the?
Luis, there was another kind of person eye view rendering at after. There you go.
There's that
So
eye level
this
view.
yeah, this is sort of right as you would come in from the archway.
Okay.
So that's the end of our material, and
Okay.
so obviously.
What, any commissioners, what are your thoughts here on this? They're here for conceptual discussion.
Correct.
I wanted to ask, in terms of what's being created, that is at the exact same level as the existing patio now, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And you hadn't, and it's probably too expensive, but you hadn't thought of just, you know, leaving that, I mean, you know, somehow recreating that patio and excavating underneath, you know, just excavating underneath, because I think you'll have to remove, because right now there's a patio and there's nothing underneath it, right, except soil, I'm guessing, right?
That's what they are doing.
Yes, I mean, that's what they have now, right? But they have to, but they are. And I guess I'm just wondering why they're not just kind of making that patio the same as
A
it was.
solid deck.
Yeah, instead of making the deck and making it a little, you know, making it a different shape, if that's an aesthetic decision or if that's something that you're doing because it makes more sense functionally with.
Are you saying rather than have the deck, as we're showing it, pulled away from the building, to have it go all the way to the building edges?
Yeah, I'm just curious if you, I mean, not that I think that's better, but that's what you have now. And I'm just wondering why you thought to do it differently.
Well, I think at that point it would become essentially a not fully open parking garage, and you'd have to provide ventilation and really we want to keep it away from the residents there on that level, but at the same time keep it as much in spirit of what's there now as possible.
I think this is more clever than making it an enclosed garage, which would be very expensive for one thing.
Right, that's what I'm thinking too. And again, like you said, there would be the ventilation, and here you have the opportunity of doing something different with the different shapes. Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to know the reasoning behind it.
Okay, any other questions for the applicants?
Yeah, one thing that struck me when I looked at this was the patio now, when you're in the driveway, has really pretty elegant dual stairways going up to the patio, and it's kind of formal and nice. And the entrance it now seems to be like almost an afterthought, almost like an exit stair off to the left, I think it is. And as you look at this further, I would suggest this, I don't know, looking at different ways that stairway might be configured that might be more elegant. Maybe there's one on each side, maybe there's, I don't know, it's just as you develop it further, I would just suggest looking at that entrance. I know you can't do one in the center because that's where the driveway is, but
right. And I think I don't want to put one on the other side because that's going to be the handicap parking, which will be as closest to the elevators that are around the corner. But we'll certainly look at enhancing that end of the deck and the stairs.
I like the idea of getting the big trees in on the ends, on either side of the ends, on the interior ends of this deck. I kind of think it's kind of a little bit strange. I mean, it's like almost the well, and I suppose maybe it's something to look at. It's attractive, but you've really got you've just got a sidewalk down through the middle of this thing, and you kind of stuck in some seating areas. Maybe that works. It's kind of a deck area, but would you do any lighting on this thing then, or anything like that, or?
Yeah, so we are
later?
anticipating the overhead lighting catenary system, and not sure if it'll
that's
be
right.
this particular product or not.
Yeah, I mean, currently we're showing those rings. I'm not sure if that will be the final design, but that's the current conception.
Gotcha. Okay. Any other comments?
Of course, there'll be a lighting for the parking below, of course, as well.
Sure. Any other questions or comments?
Did we ever get the answer on the parking and the unit count that you had asked for, Steve?
I haven't heard it.
Yeah, I can weigh in then. This is Trevor again. So our 3 phases on the east block of the annex development have 392 units and 222 spaces.
Okay.
There was a comment earlier.
And you're proposing to add 92 spaces, is that it?
52.
52, okay. Okay. Okay.
There was a comment
for the applicant or from the, yes, anything else you want to say, anybody? Because we need to move on here.
One thing before we move on, there was a comment about the kind of the sawtooth and the variation to the shape. And certainly we've kind of studied it from a structural standpoint that we are able to move it out. We were kind of worried about it getting a little too busy, but certainly open to the commentary on a preference of maintaining kind of that irregular shape versus keeping it normalized.
Okay. I guess I would fall into the camp of, I don't know if it needs to move in and out quite as much, but I think it's better if you don't want a straight line along there. Okay, good. And again, I think part of what's going to have to do with how this thing looks and feels, or your finishes, the pavers that you use or whatever you use, and some of the plant material. It'd be good if something were taller than 2 or 3 feet on the deck somehow or another, even if they end up being in planters along there. And I think real important are the size of the trees at the end there in the middle. And I buy into your point that those will actually end up being more visible from Front Street, because I drove along there too, and you can't really see anything on the inside of it. Okay, great. Thanks very much. Appreciate you bringing it in.
Thank you.
Next case, please. This is our last case.
Yes, last case. Long meeting. DC 2102-004, Confluence Village. We all know where Confluence
Village is. Turn your
Village
volume
is.
down a little bit too, Lewis, if you would.
Is it still too loud?
Right now it is for a moment. Otherwise, I'm going to sick Nolan on you.
He keeps letting me know. I don't know why. Is that better?
That's better.
It keeps going up on me. I don't know what's going on. All right. So here we are at Confluence Village. We all know where that is. Let me pull up there's no site visit because there's nothing there yet. They're still working on it. So they're proposing redevelopment of 8.4 acres adjacent to New Crew Stadium. This proposal came before the commission at the December 2020 meeting for conceptual review. Although the office building was presented in detail at that meeting, the residential buildings were presented in general forms. So they're returning with more detailed presentation. I'll just talk about the primary feedback was that Whitman stated he was concerned about Block B units overlooking a parking lot to the north. Loversige asked if the distance between building A and B was close enough, and Maniaci asked if there was a way to incorporate a green roof on the one-story lobby areas. So none of this has changed regarding the proposed development details. There's a narration provided by the applicant. The analysis is the same, that we look to promote good design, long-lasting construction of materials, and attention to detail. And buildings should be designed that the primary facades address a public street with emphasis on functional front door pedestrian access. So in summary, planning still appreciates the townhouse entry element incorporated in the ground floor of the residential buildings. but would still like to see more details on the open space to the west of Building B. That might come in a little bit later with landscaping. And we would also, planning would also like to see the Block B parking lot improved through additional plantings and green space. That's kind of in line with what Steve Whitman said at the previous meeting. So that's it for staff's presentation.
Okay. Would all those who are here for the applicant please identify yourselves?
Yeah, John Rewald with The Duty.
Josh Blessing, Haslam Sports Group.
Jeff Pangonis, MKSK.
Sam Lucchino with Getch Partners.
Okay, that's everybody. Would you raise your right hands, please? Do you swear and affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So say I do.
I do.
I do.
Thank you very much. Okay, go for it.
Awesome, thanks. So I'm John Rewald, Vice President of Development for Pizzuti Companies. I'm here on behalf of our team with this joint venture with Haslam Sports Group to develop the mixed-use neighborhood adjacent to the new and soon-to-be open Crew Stadium. Our team really does see this as a rare opportunity to revitalize an area that's so close to the core of downtown. You know, as Lewis mentioned, we were here in December. We'll briefly hit on some of those master plan updates in the office just to refamiliarize you and then focus in on the residential. I'll be turning it over to Sam Lucchino, design principal with Getch Partners shortly. We've got a design presentation. So today focusing in on the 5.6 acres that includes 440 apartment homes in roughly 448,000 square feet. And I'll just add, you know, our team has taken a lot of time to make sure that this project overall in the residential, specifically today, you know, thoughtfully integrates into the greater neighborhood, both as it relates to that pedestrian experience standpoint and architecturally. You know, we feel we've got a superior location, and this neighborhood really does offer up a unique set of amenities, both as it relates to, you know, our residential programming and then from a greater neighborhood perspective with the adjacency to the riverfront, the new park, pedestrian bridge, and the stadium. So we really do feel we have an opportunity to do something truly dynamic here. So with that said, I'll turn it over to Sam to walk you through, and you know, we welcome feedback and questions and comments. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, John. Thank you everyone for having us. Is it okay if I share my screen, or would you guys like to control the presentation over there?
As long as nothing's changed too much, go ahead and
yeah, should be the same. Let's see here. Oh, okay. Let's see if I can change this view. Okay, can you guys see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. All right, so let's jump right in. I know everybody's kind of tired and the coffee's empty. We've already talked about the site location. Just to remind everybody, this is kind of the third iteration of a sports facility generating as a catalyst for development in the downtown area, which started with Nationwide Arena, then moved on to Huntington Ballpark, and now we're looking at the development around the Columbus Crew Stadium. In all of those cases, obviously the architecture of the stadium was a big influencer on the architecture of the urban planning and the buildings within it, and this is no exception. The architecture of the stadium is obviously significantly different than what we've seen in the Columbus area before, and especially in this area. So we're obviously trying to go off of the concepts that are there and kind of use that as a transitional idea for the character of the neighborhood. Last time we spoke, we did talk about the office building. This is the master plan of the area. Crew Stadium, obviously, right on the right side there. The office building that we presented to you is down here at the bottom of the page along Nationwide Boulevard. Moving north, we have the public parking garage, which is a city project being led by Moody Nolan's team on the architecture side. And then the sort of wraparound residential building that you see in Block A is one of the buildings that we'll talk about, and then Block B is the other one that we'll talk about. There was a comment about the extension of the roadway here. I'll just address the slide. We're looking at two options. One is to improve from a landscape design perspective the frontage there for the residential units. But more recently, we've been kind of leaning towards extending the roadway around and connecting to the back side of Block B. So we understand the concerns, we have them as well, and we're trying to kind of vet the best solution for the master plan and the residents. When we met, sorry, there's a little delay here on this. This is, again, the office building, and I don't want to dwell on it, but just to highlight the architecture a little bit. You know, the idea of the building was really to try and draw the sort of strong architecture of the stadium, recognize its location as being adjacent to the park and the waterfront, and use that as a sort of a generative idea to kind of transition from an organic touch to the water and a more strong touch to the stadium. So the idea that the building has these sort of ripples that move back and forth through the facade was the idea, which is really contrasted by the strong edges of the floor plates. Really allows that to read and allows the differentiation of floor to floor to really be legible. So how can we use this as a catalyst for the residential architecture? We'll talk about that here next. Again, this is the location of the residential, with the only difference here being the parking garage is outside of our scope. The ground floor plan here gives you a good indication of how the buildings will be accessed. So starting with Block A here in the middle, as you're moving up to the north from Nationwide Boulevard between the parking garage and Columbus Crew Stadium, you'll see our buildings start to emerge here on the north side of the garage. At both locations, the northeast of the garage and the southwest of the garage, we have our loading and mechanical facilities. As you wrap around our building here going counterclockwise, the light green area will be a fitness center. It will be part of an amenity for the entire residential users within the master plan, but we would also like the office to be able to use it as an amenity as well. We have a little satellite lobby here, which is this little yellow box, and that will be for users' sort of ability to get in and out when they're over here by the stadium. But the primary entrance to both buildings is along Jaeger, right down the middle here. So on the south side of Jaeger, we have the Block A lobby. The green part is additional amenity space. That's the pavilion that juts out into the landscape courtyard. And then across Jaeger to Block B, we have another amenity building that on the ground floor will be the lobby. And perhaps on the second floor will be a small co-working facility to amenitize this building as well. Moving further to the west around Edge of River, the dark green units that you see are meant to be duplex townhomes. The other lighter two shades will be garden apartments, but all unit facing all public right-of-ways will have stoops, so that sort of public interaction and pedestrian connection as you're walking around in the civic realm will be very important and highlighted with the building. And then as you move to the south, the office building, you can see another satellite lobby here in yellow that is, again, a convenient access for be able to get in and out of the building if they're at the park or at the waterfront. There's a little gateway here between our building and the parking garage, which is meant to be sort of for serviceability and maintainability of the courtyard. We also imagine if the fire department could access in the courtyard, we could accommodate it isolated and unprotected. Block B, as we've got, has parking around the north side of it. We also reciprocate your concerns about the quality of that space units are looking at and the ground floor, what the units above are looking down at. This is not meant to be the final design, and as we sort of figure out what the roadway will look like on the west side of this block, we'll touch this space again and get more landscaping in here. But that is the space that we will spend more time designing. From an architectural standpoint, because the buildings are so long, the facades are over 300 feet along both Jaeger and edge of river. We decided to kind of use two philosophies for massing to kind of break these down. We didn't want the buildings to look like 50 different 5-story townhomes, but we did want a little bit of variety and try to use the thoughts that were in the office building that were inspired by the stadium as the means of creating a new language for the massing of the residential. So the light blue shaded areas that you see along the east side of Jaeger and the west side of Jaeger are what we call float, which is shown here in the bottom right. And the light red shaded areas across Jaeger and also in the southwest corner of the parking garage are what we call layer. And with layer, you can see this idea of this horizontality that was brought in from the office building. But instead of having the angularity be a ripple in the facade, it's really kind of expressed in the roof lines. You see the roof kind of goes up and down. And we have moments of openness similar to the office building, but this time they kind of move along and slide along the layering within the massing. So every once in a while, a corner will reveal itself, and every once in a while, there will be an opening in the facade that allows outdoor access for the units. And the strategy here is there's a ground floor mass, then there's 2 layers above it, and then the 2.5 to 3 layers as the building rises at the peak of the roof lines. So there's a sort of ascent in massing as we move up. For float, it's a little bit different. The idea was really to kind of still register the horizontality, but not express it so much. So float is meant to be these sort of icebergs that are kind of set in the datum. Similar to layered, we have the ground floor that's 1 layer. And the idea here is that this is sort of lifting these boxes up. So it's really not about this horizontal movement. It's really about sort of vertical boxes rising. But in order to accentuate the plan a little bit, we did indent the plan so that the vertex, the roof line is accentuated at the low point. So you'll see this little shaded area that's illustrating an inflection in the plan. From a material perspective, these are some things that we're thinking about right now. For all of the ground floor spaces that you see within the building, we're looking at a masonry product. On the left, you see what's representing a dark iron spot brick. For those of you that are aware of that material interacts with sunlight, extremely dynamic. In an overcast day, it'll be pretty bright. In a very sunny day, it'll be very dark. We're looking to use a dark mortar, almost black, so that it's not competing color changes of the material. So that's not reflected well in this photograph, but it gives you a general sense of the quality of that material. The 2 on the far right are meant to be the primary materials for the float beams, and we're alternating from volume to volume so that it's not so monotonous as you move around. These are currently, we're thinking a cementitious type of a board. These kind of look like a rough sawn wood, and there's a little bit of color variety. We like it because it keeps that horizontal feel of the brick, but gives us a little bit of variety in materiality, this legibility of wood versus brick, so that it's not all a whole neighborhood of brick. And then the lighter wood that you see here on the left side is meant to be used as an accent color, similar to what we did on the office building. We'd like to use something here that kind of ties all of these together through small details around the property. So this is a rendering in the top right corner of these images. You can see a little key plan indicating where these are. So this is at the northeast corner of Jaeger and our block. I guess it would be the southwest corner of Jaeger and Columbus Crew Way. On your left-hand side, you can see the bend of Columbus Crew Way, which would turn to the right slightly, and you can see the stadium in front of you. This is the northeast corner of our building, and again, you can see here this sort of datum of 1 story increasing to 2 stories, increasing to 2.5 as the building parapets rise. The openings in the corner and the openings as the layers slide along. This opening here on the bottom left indicates an entrance into one of the satellite lobbies, as well as entrance into the fitness center. So the frontage along this building here, as it faces the public plaza of Nordic Gate, will be the fitness center. And then as you wrap around Jaeger and move towards edge of river, you'll start to see these stoops in the residential neighborhood start to take effect for the public realm design here. As you move halfway down, this is the entry pavilion that I think you guys got a glimpse of last time we met. That's staying there. And then you can see on the far right here where the other massing of float starts to come in, and that sort of dichotomy between the two as you move along. Here again is that nighttime sort of element that you might see coming in to your house at Jaeger. So the idea really being that you can see through from the lobby to the courtyard, and that the back of this sort of pavilion would be stuck out in the courtyard as opposed to being contained within the building, and really kind of get a sense of being in the outside as opposed to being confined. This element set back here is kind of a neutral mass that kind of connects layered and float. What you're looking at is a single loaded corridor. We wanted to be able to get some light into the upper levels so that as you wrap around, you're not just looking at another monotonous hallway. On the sort of mezzanine floor here, you'll have some additional amenity space, but this will be an opportunity to walk down, look out. You have guests arriving, wait for them here, and then come down and greet them and just get a sense of daylight within the building. And you can see here how this other wood material is starting to take shape on the float scheme, and it's all tied together with these small little details of that lighter wood that exists in the office building, they exist in the layered scheme, and they exist in float. This is the lighter gray blend, which is called smoke. And then as you move around, the corner is more of a warm gray blend, which is called espresso. But you can see the consistent ground floor all the way around the building, regardless of massing strategy, with the exception of the lobby pavilion. Very sort of sturdy, strong base with these building elements rising above. And again, as we move down towards the edge of river, again, there's a transition from float scheme to the layered scheme. They feel synonymous, but they're different. And the architecture is very unlike things that we've seen from Nationwide and Huntington Park. And then here, just turning 90 degrees to the north, on your left would be that extension of that roadway that we've discussed. The idea that the road could wrap around, or that there would be some sort of park there that extends that, keeps that access alive. But this would be similarly and reciprocally across the layered scheme for Block B. And you can see here in the middle of Jaeger, the amenity building. And then finally, at the northwest corner of Jaeger and Columbus Crew, we switch back to float, and you can see this sort of palette of smoke and this palette of espresso wrapping around and heading north again as Columbus Crewway extends up towards 670. And that is our presentation. So fire away with any questions you have. We have more floor plans in here if you'd like to see anything in greater detail, but that's where we are.
I have 2 comments.
Okay.
I think what you've created is beautiful and artistic and unique. And I know you already mentioned this, but as you develop this further, just concentrating on the parking in Block B.
Yep.
And I know last time we talked about this where you said there might be a little bit of room to push it a little bit to the north, because it looks like if you could get a bank of cars at that north perimeter, that it might free up some space within the parking lot, and then
Yep.
maybe there's less density and you could create some little islands and maybe even paving, variation in paving that lead out to the green space, and maybe then your pathway could connect, your Olentangy pathway, something like that. But I think there's lots of opportunity to make it unique and make it so that those residents in Block B are looking out over something appealing and softened. And then in Block A, I know you had talked about that there's a west parking lot, parking structure, and that west facade. I think you said there was some idea of how to program at that or do something creative on that side of the building, because there will be a lot of residents that have that view as well.
Yeah. Yeah, we're
Absolutely.
1000% with you. We share the same concerns, and we're on it.
Okay, but it's very beautiful, and I think you've done a wonderful job.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, Janet, the parking structure is going to be coming in next month as well. So,
Okay, great. Okay.
well, unfortunately, Bob Leversige and Steve Whitman had to leave for a previous meeting. They just left a little bit ago, Steve Whitman did, but they both indicated that they thought it was, Steve said that it was, it looks terrific, and Bob said that he thought it was very exciting and a great addition to the city. So there's no other feedback?
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. That's very helpful.
Okay, thank you for your patience. That was a long meeting. So.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Well, I guess I'm running the meeting now. The chair's gone. So with that, I think we'll just close off the meeting then. We don't have enough commissioners to approve the staff approved items. So I'll try and remember to do that next time. Is there anything else?
I think we're all set.
Okay, that was a long meeting, so glad it's over. And we can't even vote to end the meeting, so I guess it's just going to go on until next month. I don't even know how to do that. So, let's end the meeting. I don't know how official that is, but we'll end the meeting, and then I guess we'll see you next month. Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, thanks, Nolan. Thanks, Jana.
No problem. Have a good day. But shrink finders is another really good one.